Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Giant Mess. I am your host, Neal Lynch. I am a giant mess. I'm a Giants and Mets fan who loves movies, comedy, TV, and a whole lot more. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about my birthday and the date night that me and my wife went on to celebrate that birthday. I'm also going to be talking about the 4th episode of the Watchmen Season 1, titled If You Don't Like This Story, Write Your Own. Great title. The 5th episode of Mr. Robot, titled Method Not Allowed. My reviews of Dr. Sleep and Stuber. Questions that Brodie Van Wagenen has to answer at the MLB GM meetings. A few free agents the Mets could possibly consider signing. Then the Giants' Week 10 loss to the Jets, along with the job status of Pat Shumur, James Bettcher, and GM David Gettleman. So let's get started, y'all. Start off with life. I just started this juice in the raw diet. We have a wedding coming up in a couple weeks. This Saturday, actually, down in Avalon for a friend from high school, and I can't fit into my tux. It's a black tie optional, which I don't know what that means. It means, hey, you can dress up real fancy or you don't, and so I'm going to err on the side of ultra fancy. Rented a tux from the Black Tux, and it doesn't fit. So we're going to do a little crash diet, and we decided on the juice and the raw. So we started that last week, and I got to say, I'm handling it pretty well. I thought it would be a lot worse than this. It's like, typically there's 5 days, you get 5 days worth of bottles. Each day is 4 bottles, and you're supposed to drink the 4 bottles over each day. We kind of modified that and tweaked it a little bit. We're each doing 3 bottles and then a sensible dinner. Which it's never sensible because you're starving and cranky. And when you're in that kind of mindset, you're eating everything and anything under the sun. So kind of defeats the purpose. But if you can still stay mentally strong and still have your will, still have the self-control that I'm jealous of people that have that. It's completely missing from my DNA. But, I was able to handle it fairly well, considering that, I am a carnivore who just cannot get through a day without having meat in my system. So juice in the raw, they have detox greens, sweet greens, coconut fusion, passion fruit cleanser, spicy lemonade, beet juice, which I thought I would hate. And it turned out I actually liked it a lot. It might be one of my favorites, and a whole bunch more. The coconut fusion was a little weird. If you follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I posted that. And I think I posted on Facebook too. The picture, I made the mistake of reading the ingredients. Some of these, I'm curious, what's in it. Some of them, I'm just whatever. Okay, just pop the cap, get it down the gullet. But with coconut fusion, I was like, fusion, that's throwing me off. What are you fusing the coconut with? What are you fusing that nut with? Give me that nut, but also what are you fusing that nut with? So I looked at the ingredients like a fool, and I posted it. They couldn't have picked worse wording for the ingredients on this thing. Organic young coconut Thai flesh. No, dude, no, you don't say flesh ever unless you're a serial killer. Flesh should never be mentioned. It's not like, hey, what do you guys want for dinner? You want chicken flesh or human flesh? Like, no, flesh, no, never use the word flesh ever. So that kind of threw me off. And then all I could think about as I'm drinking this coconut fusion is I'm consuming young Thai flesh. There's young Thai kids, their flesh is entering my body. And I'm like a vampire now. Great, I'm a zombie vampire. That's not what I'm looking for. I mean, most zombies and vampires, great shape. So yeah, maybe I do want that physique, but not at the cost of consuming young Thai children. Gross. So, I think I've lost a pound. I need to lose about 40 to 50 pounds to be considered healthy by the government. Thanks, Gov. That's number one. Number two is, just so I can avoid, looking like an absolute shithead. Because I looked at the last wedding photo that we took together, and it was just like, I'm supposed to be the best man. I was the worst man. That was I think I talked about this before, but I almost choked to death at that wedding. I literally was choking on a piece of steak and just looking around. Everyone's laughing and talking and, shooting the shit. And I'm seeing my life flash before my eyes. The worst. So hopefully that doesn't happen at this shindig. Should be fun, though. The only issue is I'm not going to be able to fully 100% enjoy it because we have to drive back to my mother-in-law's Sunday morning, pick up the baby, and then I got to be on a flight to Los Angeles, y'all. That's because I have accepted a position, a new role. Not going to talk too much about it because I don't want them getting pissed before I start and then them rescinding and recanting their offer. But I got to go out to LA. First week, they're like, yeah, you're going to LA. Like, whoa, okay. It's kind of last minute. And then I got to take the red eye back Wednesday night into Thursday morning, show up my first day in the actual New York City office. I'm going to be all tuckered, jet lagged out, looking stoned out of my mind with the red eye burning bright and red and being like, hi, I'm your new boss. You're a train wreck and we don't respect you. And you're automatically, we're not listening to anything you say. Great. But yeah, so that's going to be unfortunate that I can't fully embrace, because that wedding's going to get nuts. The guy getting married, I know from high school. I played baseball with him. This was the bachelor party I went to in Tampa. If you remember that episode, probably don't. But I've been still editing that video and trying to put that out, which is, it's over an hour long. I mean, who's going to watch me for an hour? You're out of your mind. But that's the same guy. So he knows how to party, and he's going to bring it, hopefully. Although his wife's there, he's probably going to be on his best behavior with his wife there. But I'm looking to get back at him for what he did to me on my wedding night. He knows what he did, and I'm going to get him, hopefully. Probably not. That's why we're doing the juice and the raw diet. Trying to lose some LBs before we're going to pack them on, because this is pack it on season. Thanksgiving season, SZN, Christmas season. We're coming off pumpkin beers where that's all we drank was pumpkin beers. And those pumpkin beers, it's not like, Miller 64 or whatever the fuck it is. Miller, not High Life, not Genuine Draft. The other ones taste like water. Those are not the beers that we're consuming, pumpkin beers. These are like 200 to 300 minimum calories per bottle. And then you dive into Christmas beers and it just gets kicked up a notch, like 400 to 500 calories per bottle. It's like, what are you putting in this shit? Dear God. So yeah, we're going to pack them on during the holiday season. So it's like, we got to at least try a little bit before that happens, so that it just we'll all come out come out at zero, hopefully net zero at some point. Net Zero, remember that company? Do they still exist? So yeah, Saturday was my birthday. Couldn't celebrate on Saturday, so we celebrated Friday night, date night. Went to Tierney's Copper House. So I remember last time I did a date night video, talked about a date night for I believe it was our anniversary. We went to Tierney's Copper House, and this place is legit. It's awesome. It's great. Great food, great drinks, affordable. I mean, we're looking at our I talked about the Beatrice Inn in New York and how that came out to like $300 a person. Like, yikes. That no dinner's worth that. This one was reasonable. A third of that, with almost the same quality, I'd say. Not the quite same, but it's like you're getting good food for a good price. And the only issue is it's off of like a highway. It's across from a gas station. It's kind of tucked away. It doesn't really stick out. So it's not getting noticed, but hopefully with this plug, the Neal Lynch bump, the giant mess bump, it'll take them over the edge. Hopefully not, because we don't even have to make reservations. I hate to break it to I know that restaurant's probably like, no, don't say that, but you don't have to make reservations really. I mean, you can get a table whenever on a weekend night. So that's it's the best kept secret that I just spilled. That's me and secrets don't really jive. We went there and had spicy cauliflower bites, which you feel a little gypped by any of the vegetables that they kind of spruce up, right? Like the crispy Brussels sprouts and the spicy cauliflower bites. Like, come on, really? You're gonna charge? I mean, they're vegetables. How are you gonna I don't care how much you dress up vegetables. They're vegetables. These cost like a nickel at the grocery store. Why you gotta charge $10 plus for spicy cauliflower bites? But they were good, and so were the Brussels sprouts. And I no one has had a bigger comeback story than Brussels sprouts in my life. They were like the devil growing up. Like, you want Brussels sprouts? I didn't even know what they looked like. I just knew when you say Brussels sprouts, I'm gagging and I'm dry heaving. Because no, thank you. Brussels sprouts, that's what bad parents give you. Good parents give you the good stuff, mac and cheese. But yeah, Brussels sprouts are amazing, especially when you are able to do them like this, where it's kind of you sear them or whatever you do to them. I guess you coat them in sugar to make them crispy and put bacon on it, But by themselves, they're also pretty good. But when you do make them fancy, they are nice. I drank an apple cider mule, which I feel like the waiter gave me a little look. He gave me an eye when that happened. It's like, come on, guy. What? I'm not allowed to have apple cider cider anymore. But then after that, I crushed that. And I'll tell you why I was drinking so much, because we were going to see a movie afterwards. And the movie was a scary movie. It was a mindfuck movie. So I had to get plenty of alcohol in my system. And I wasn't driving, just a PSA for anyone, for MAD, but that's still a thing. Mothers Against Drunk Driving. All the Madders out there, the Mad Hatters, I think they're called. I did not drink and drive. My wife was the DD. And so I had the apple cider mule. I feel like he gave me a look. And so the next time around, they had a beer called Angry Dad Amber Ale. And I think it was local. And I was like, you just checked off two of my biggest boxes. Whenever I go out to a bar or restaurant, I'm looking for local brews and local brews that have cool names. That's all the two criteria I need. I don't care what kind of beers they are. The IPAs and me don't mix necessarily. But so Angry Dad Amber Ale felt like it was appropriate. And we had steak and lobster, baked potatoes, which we didn't touch, but that we, saved. The next day, baked potato is just as good, if not better. And then we split some banana bread pudding, which they threw some candles in there. That was weird. Like you're at a steakhouse or whatever, fancy restaurant. No one has to sing. I mean, this waiter was like, it was like, if this were a movie, like a buddy cop movie, he's just trying to get through today because tomorrow's retirement is just a day away. Just got to get through the day. That's the waiter that we had. 60 plus years old. He looks like he's done for the night and it's only like 7. And, he's just trying to get through this shift because then he can get that gold watch. That's the waiter that we had. Get the banana bread pudding, and then he kind of started singing, and my wife started singing, and they just stopped. And then one woman at the table next to us just clapped a couple times, and I was like, oh, this is 39. Welcome. Enjoy yourself. We got our food wrapped to go, and the plan was we're just going to drop the food off in the car, and then we'll go to the bar. There's like this new bar section they opened up in the restaurant. It's kind of, you walk through the little lobby and on the other side is this bar. So that was the plan. And we go to walk to the door and the general manager or whatever manager cuts us off. He's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, blah, blah. And he's like, we celebrating anything tonight? And I was like, he goes, you been here before? You celebrating anything? I was like, yeah, we've been here before for our anniversary, and now we're here for my birthday. And he goes, oh, how old? And I went, I kind of rolled my eyes, and I had to think. And that's when you're fucking old, when you have to think. And I know there are, people older than me, boomers. I'm not anti-boomer, but there's a generation above me who's like 39. I wish I was 39. It's like, yeah, okay, I get it. But when you're on the internet and you see all these ageist motherfuckers out there who are hating on, no one's hating on the Generation X generation, which I find to be hilarious. We're just laying in the cut like, yeah, they did that. And yeah, you guys are doing that. It's just like, we're just eating our popcorn, watching this generation battle that generation. And just like, we're just sitting here like, yeah, we're the slacker generation. We don't do shit. We just watch everyone else fuck up. But, I had to think about it. And I said 39. And the guy's like, fuck you. Like, I'm 50 something. Like, yeah, I wish it was 30. And I was like, all right, this guy's all right. And he's like, come on, follow me. We'll take you to have you been to our bar? And we're like, we were planning on going after we drop off our food, but we didn't say that. So he takes us in and he's like, first round of drinks are on me. And we're like, all right, I guess we're taking our food into this bar and having a drink on this guy. Because the movie wasn't showing for a while, which is rare for us. Usually we're like racing to the theater to catch it. So we had some time. We're going to have a drink or two, especially me. I need a drink or 3 because it's like I said, it's a mindfuck movie. And my mind is a delicate flower. It doesn't like to be effed in the A. So, we sat down and this bar is very cool. I will say that. They had live music. They had a guy on a guitar playing all the classic rock hits, which we loved, and had plenty of space. They had like leather couches and a big screen TV playing the college football game or NFL's Greatest 100, something like that. And so it had a good vibe to it, good feel. It felt like you weren't in a bar, but you were in someone's like a really rich person's basement. And we got to reconnect, me and my wife, and had espresso martinis because we are now parents. And so it's 9:00 and this is usually when we start, heading to bed. And it's like, no, we got another 3 to 4 hours out of us. We got to amp up, calf up, get some caffeine going through the blood. So we ordered a couple espresso martinis and this bartender was not ready for that order. So she had to go make espresso and figure out how to make the actual espresso martini. She had to open up the beverage Bible, wherever they have back there. And it smelled. I'm sorry. I know, and it wasn't overwhelming smell. It wasn't and this is crazy that this happened yet again. last date night, we went to another bar and it smelled like reeked of vomit and barf. We had to sit through that and steam and bathe in that for an hour plus. This one wasn't as bad as the barf, but it was like maybe a little bit of raw sewage, or maybe it was just our food. I don't know. I mean, Brussels sprouts and baked potatoes, do they age well? Who knows? You eat Brussels sprouts, you're going to have something nasty coming out your bunghole and causing a ruckus that way, a butt ruckus. But, we were able to withstand the smells, and we had an espresso martini, and then I ended up ordering a vodka soda. My wife ordered a tequila soda. She couldn't handle the tequila soda. It was apparently very strong. So I downed my vodka soda, down her tequila soda, and I'm in a good spot at this point. It's like, I could witness a car crash, homicide, mass cult suicide, and I'd be like, all right, I think I can get to bed at night. I can catch some Z's after this. So as we're leaving, the GM calls us over to his table again. He's like, hey, how do you like everything? And we're like, oh, it's great. Thank you so much. And he's like, hey, you guys, I heard you were going to see a movie. And we're like, yeah. And he's like, what are you going to see, Joker? And the bartender said the same thing to us. So, are you going to a movie? You going to see Joker? And we're like, no, we're going to see Dr. Sleep. And they're like, oh, yeah, we want to see that. And the GM's like, hey, I got to show you something. Like, have you seen this? It's a video of Jim Carrey doing an impression of Jack Nicholson in The Shining when he's at the typewriter and going and speaking, I believe to his wife, Wendy, at that point in the movie. And you watch it, and it's kind of split screen, not a vertical split, horizontal split. Jim Carrey's on top, Jack Nicholson's on the bottom. And it is, without a doubt, flawless. Perfect. I mean, you almost can't tell the difference between Jim Carrey and Jack Nicholson. It's that good. I mean, the mannerisms, the looks, the hair, the shirt, the background, the chair, everything looks perfect. A little too perfect. And, as I'm watching, I'm like, holy shit, oh my God, this is so crazy, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah. And he felt good showing me that video. He's like, yeah, I got some good, cool brownie points on that one. And I walk out to the car and I say to Cassie, I was like, I didn't want to burst that guy's bubble, but that is for sure a deepfake video. And then I had to explain deepfake videos to my wife, and she has to know that that's coming down the pike, and it's scary. And if you don't know what deepfake videos are, deepfake photography, whatever, I don't know if I want to introduce you to that part of the world, because it's coming and it's going to affect all of us. Deepfake videos. And I my hope here is that someone actually ends up making a deepfake video of this, of me talking about deepfake videos. Essentially, it's like a very, in, I don't know, layman's terms, to put it as basic as I can in a way that I understand, is like really convincing, like Photoshop, but for videos. So there's a video, and I use this example with my wife. I said, Google Bill Hader, Tom Cruise, David Letterman, or late night or late show, whatever it is. Bill Hader went on the David Letterman show, and he's talking about his time with Tom Cruise. I guess he was filming something with Tom Cruise, and he did an impression of Tom Cruise. And when he looks normal as he's talking about Tom Cruise, but then when he does the impression of Tom Cruise, you see Tom Cruise's face on Bill Hader's frame body on his head. So and it goes in and out. So it's Bill Hader's face, and then as soon as he's doing the impression, it's Tom Cruise, but it looks like Tom Cruise. And so I'm 1,000% sure that they took Jim Carrey's face and they stuck it on Jack Nicholson's head during that scene. Because you watch it and there's every single little move, just the littlest of movements are identical in each frame, in each shot. And I didn't want to burst this bubble, but I was like, yo, deepfake, you got deepfake, bro. And I bring that up because we ended up going to see Dr. Sleep. And there is a scene later on in the movie where I thought, wow, it's happening. This is going to be huge. And I'll get to that when I review Dr. Sleep. I will say this. I'll just talk about the experience of the theater first. So we get there, plenty of time, skip the food line, which is a rarity for me, but we were full to the gills. Go to our seats. First scene of the movie, Cassie freaks out and panics. And it's nothing that scary in my mind. It's the haunting soundtrack. Yes, for sure. That can cause some scary vibes. Nothing that scary has really happened yet. It's a little creepy, a little scary. She just freaks out. She's like, I'm too scared. This is too scary. Do you think it's too late to go see the Joker? We should go see the Joker. Do you think we should leave? We should go and see the Joker. We'll sneak into the Joker. I'm too scared. And I was just like, this movie is damn near 2.5 hours long. We got through 2 minutes and you're out. You're tapping out. That's got to be a record. Fortunately for us, or unfortunately, I don't know how you want to view it, we did stick it out and we did stay through the entire movie, which it was touch and go there for a while because there was some rumblings and grumblings 5 to 10 rows ahead of us. We were kind of in the second back half of the theater. And in the front of the theater, you just heard like, and it just like the volume of this discussion between two definite strangers was picking up and picking up and picking up. It was like, this is going to erupt into something bad. And, I have like a final destination mind. So like anytime something like some kind of scenario like this starts happening, I'm just like, I'm looking for exits. I'm like, this is going to result in bloodshed and chaos, mayhem, anarchy, like how, and I thought like, I do have to pee. Maybe now is the time to go pee. I had to pee the entire movie, and I held it the entire movie. So, spoiler, I held it. But there were a couple moments throughout the movie where I was like, okay, I'm going now. And right when I'm saying now and I'm about to get up, it's like something happens on the screen. I'm like, all right, well, I guess like you got me for another 5 minutes. And just that happened throughout the. So I guess that's a plus, if the producers are looking for any positives to take away after this weekend, which I guess it underperformed. It's that, hey, you won't want to go pee, which is saying a lot. I think a lot of movies that are 2.5 hours, that's tough. And if you can have people that sit through it and don't pee, you got yourself a good show. That's the risk you run when you go to R-rated movies, is the threat of violence. You're not thinking that or fearing that when you go to see like Toy Story or Lion King in the theater. Any G-rated, PG-rated movie, you're not seeing, there's not going to be there's no threat of a brawl, stabbing, shooting. You go to see like, Dr. Sleep, the Joker, and it's like, there's extra security. Luckily, we got through all of it in one piece. Very happy about that. But, my wife was like, after we saw it, she's like, why did we choose this movie? Why did we choose that? You're not going to be able to, you're going to have a night terror for sure. You're not going to be able to sleep. We saw Dr. Sleep. You can't go to sleep after Dr. Sleep. And I was like, well, we didn't have any other choices, in my mind. It's like the 4 movies I wanted to see were Terminator, Dark Fate, The Joker, Zombieland, Double Tap, and Dr. Sleep. It's like of those 4, I guess Zombieland, Double Tap is a comedy. So, there's still plenty of gore in that where you just see brains all over the place. So like, but of the 4, I guess Zombieland, Double Tap would have been the way to go. But yeah, either way, you're going to come away with some trauma. I had to double up on the CBD that night for sure. It's like, normally there's just a little pipette, like one pipette, under the tongue before I go to sleep to scare it, to keep the night terrors at bay at Michael Bay. And then that was a 2 pipette night. I was like 1, and I was like, just to be sure 2. Because I don't know that you can OD on CBD. Can you OD on CBD? Tune in at 11. Saturday was my actual birthday. Cass went into the city to celebrate her friend's birthday, who was a couple days earlier. And because we're going to the wedding this Saturday, they couldn't do it this Saturday. The following Saturday is like Friendsgiving, whatever. So it's like, okay, I'm spending the birthday alone with the baby. Cool. But I am cool with that. So it was just me and Bree, and Cass was going to stay in the city after the birthday. And we watched college football all the live long day. She took a 3-hour nap, which is unprecedented, and it's never happened. So very proud of her for that. And during those 3 hours, it took me about 3 hours to decide what I wanted to order delivery wise, which those are the worst. And you never feel good about what you got. After an hour, 2 hours of trying to decide. And I went through multiple carts. Okay. There wasn't just, I ended up with one cart and I went with it. No, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 carts filled, ready to punch the checkout button, ready to hit submit on my order. And I backed out because you know why? GrubHub decided that they're going to now, because I guess they're tanking and they're having an awful time, that they're now going to offer perks. We're going to offer perks left and right, discounts left and right to save our business. And so they give you these perks where it's like $5 off here, free, $5 off here. And so I went through 4 or 5 of these. And each time I look through the menu, I find something great. Oh my God, I actually found something I want and it's going to be great. Look at my cart, go to checkout. $10 delivery fee. No. I'm sorry. $8 delivery fee. Nope. Out of principle, I can't do that. And I don't care how rich I ever become. That $10 delivery fee, I will not stand for it because you have the subtotal and then you have taxes and fees. So not just taxes. GrubHub does taxes and fees. You click on that and it's like taxes are this. Then we have a service fee of another $5 to $6. And then we have a delivery fee of $8 to $10. So I'm paying almost $20 to have this fucking a burger delivered. No thanks. I won't stand for it. I'm a man of high morals and That happened 4 or 5 times where I just kept going through it and I saw the delivery fee and I had to cancel out each time. So I ended up ordering from a local pizzeria, wings and a pizza, a taco pizza. Okay. The wings, outstanding, phenomenal, great. The taco pizza. Now I've had a taco pizza from another place before and they pretty much nailed it. It was like, this is a taco on a pizza. Bingo bango. You got it. You got me. You got it. But I'd like to, I like variety's the spice of life, my man. And so I like to experiment a little bit. I like to go outside the box and I like to see what else is out there just to see if I'm missing anything. A diamond in the rough. So I ordered the taco pizza and this is not the same. And I've been burned by trying to go outside the bun on pizzas before, thinking like, okay, it's a novelty pizza. I'm a gimmick guy. I like gimmicks. I get suckered into that shit all the time. So another pizzeria, I don't think it was the same one. Might've been the same one. Could have been a different one. I ordered a salad pizza and I know you're scoffing, you're laughing. You're like, you're an idiot, Neal. And it's like, yeah, I am an idiot because in my mind, I figure a salad pizza is pizza that has the requisite sauce and cheese, like every other pizza that's ever been made. And then salad items on top of it, but kind of like baked into the pizza. And this was a pizza, no sauce, no cheese, and they basically dumped a salad onto the pizza dough. Gross, dude. Why wouldn't I just order a salad with a side of bread? Who is actually ordering this knowing that that's the end product? They don't give you any descriptions on the menu or GrubHub, which I find to be so obnoxious, dude. What the fuck is Palermo pizza? What the hell is a grandma style pizza? What the hell is special pizza? Special pizza can be anything, dude. And I know you're probably yelling through your screen right now. Dude, it's blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, you would be right 8 out of 10 times. The other 2 times, you would feel like you'd be enraged. So just throw a 1-line description on this shit. So many items I tried to look up and it was like, nope. Nobody knows. You're gonna have to roll the dice on that one. Been burned by the salad pizza and now I've been burned by the taco pizza because this pizza comes and it's like, and it's to be expected. Taco meat. I mean, hell, Taco Bell's taco meat is like 12% sawdust. So yeah, I get it. Taco meat's a roll of the dice in and of itself. Understandable. Totally get it, but I'm fine with it. Okay. Enough taco meat has gone through my body that it's not an issue or topic, with me. So, but the taco meat is gross on this one. It was like, I don't even know if this is taco meat. So taco meat, like I guess a taco sauce. And then it's literally like they dumped a salad on top of the pizza and then like lettuce and tomatoes dumped on top. And then it looked like someone chopped up a stack or stacks, block or blocks of Kraft Singles American cheese and just dropped them on top of the pizza. And we're like, all right, go as fast as you can and make sure that this cheese definitely doesn't melt before it gets there. And it didn't. I had the wings and I was like, oh, that was a good, nice little base I just had down there. Now let's get into this taco pizza. I opened it and it's just unmelted blocks of American cheese. Ew. But I was so hungry and starving that I dove in. Didn't even think twice about it. And I ate it and I felt like, not lying at all when I say this, I almost thought about throwing out the rest of the pizza. I motored through 3 slices, 2 slices, and the 3rd slice I was like, I don't even know if I want this. This one's out of shame. This one's out of rage and guilt and anger. Like I'm going to eat this so hard and fast because I hate myself for ordering this. I hate the pizzeria for making this, and I hate everything else in the world. I almost contemplated throwing it out, but I didn't, luckily. And the key is, Neal, hey, just bake it in the oven some more. Melt that cheese, and everything else will come together. And sure enough, the next day, Sunday, we had leftover day. Like a charm. 1,000 times better with the melted cheese, and you forget all your worries. But hot damn, man. I cannot believe that pizzeria actually tried to get away with that. Stupid. I know. Taco pizza, why would you order that? I don't know. I love Mexican. I love pizza. Let's combine those. Let's make it work. It shouldn't be that hard. Salad and pizza, that shouldn't be that hard to combine. But you can't just dump raw ingredients on a cooked pizza dough and call it a day. Got to be a little more creative than that. And I tell you, Sunday was a trip because Cass and her friend come back from the city. All right, so that's life. All right, let's dive into the TV section of the pod of the show. We're going to be reviewing Watchmen Season 1, Episode 4. This episode is titled, If You Don't Like My Story, Write Your Own, which I love that title. And I believe, if I'm to assume correctly, it's Damon Lindelof basically giving a middle finger to the creators of the Watchmen graphic novel, who have taken issue with, I think, both the movie and this series with the the direction that Damon has taken. And so it feels like a not so subtle jab at the creator or writer who of the graphic novel, I believe, who they've kind of been at ends. The creator just does not appreciate the way Lindelof is handling the series, which I strong disagree from me. I like what Lindelof has done so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. It looks like he'll be walking away from the series after this season. I'd hate to see this just be a limited series. I really feel like this has legs and you can get 5 seasons out of it. And if that's the case, I wouldn't hate it if you have a different showrunner per season and they kind of give their take on an alternate history. I have no issue with that. I think there's enough, and this series has proven it. There's enough history. It's got a rich history, and there's enough history there, enough characters, and enough tangents that you can go on. And seeing how we're seeing that this is an alternate history, and they've already alluded to the fact that there are other universes. Why not, right? But so far, so good. And this season begins with the open of the graphic with the egg cracking. You see the Watchmen kind of like an egg yolk type of font. And that is foreshadowing the opening scene and pretty much what's going on for the rest of the episode. It's referring to fertility, reproduction, and life, the cycle of life. We're also introduced to Lady True, who visits a couple on a farm. Their names are I believe the Clark family. And then the dad's name is John. So it's kind of an allusion to Superman and his origins with the Kents, Clark Kents in Kansas. So she goes, Lady True, Vietnamese lady, kind of has that same demeanor. It's a mix between White Rose from Mr. Robot and Lucy Liu from Kill Bill Volume 2. That's the kind of vibe that I get from her. And she walks in, struts in, and she says she's a trillionaire. Okay. And she wants to buy the farm because this couple has a farm that has 40 acres. And the couple's like, nah, we're good. Thanks. Get the fuck out of our house. And she's like, well, Lady True talks about legacy, which I'm a big legacy guy. What's your story? Legacy. Obviously, the title of the episode is about writing your own story. And so she gives them the opportunity to, how do you leave a legacy, or how do you write a legacy, right? Once you pass, if you don't have, and this is her argument, if you pass and you don't have kids, your legacy ends with you. It expires. Whereas if you have kids, you pass your legacy on, they carry on the torch, et cetera, which has been huge on my mind for, I don't know, the past 13 years, because, as I've said before, my father passed from cardiac arrest in July 2006. And so his legacy is kind of with me right now. How do I honor his legacy, carry on his legacy, but also leave my legacy, and blah, 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 blah. So that kind of resonated with me. And so she says, Lady True says, this couple, like, how are you going to carry on your legacy once you're gone, if you don't have kids and can't have kids? So that's the other part of this, is that they just can't have kids. We don't know why, but she offers them a baby. And the woman's like, gets offended, and the mom's, or the wife gets offended, is like, nah, no thanks. And Lady True says, well, here's the best part. I've already made the baby. And it's the best of both of you. She already collected their genes and genetics and was able to create this baby. It's the best of their attributes, and has the baby in her arms, but she puts a time limit on it, which was great. And again, that's what made me think of White Rose, is this kind of somewhat cold, detached demeanor combined with time. That time, I believe there was a "Time I Was on My Side" song at the end of the episode. So this was, and it's the Watchmen. So time is a pervasive theme throughout. She offers them the baby, says you have 30 seconds to decide. And they're like, well, and they end up signing. And she hands over the baby. And of course, the father's like, wow, the baby has your eyes and my smile, blah, blah, blah. Then you hear some rumbling, and they go outside on the porch, and you see kind of like what looks like a meteorite, asteroid, comet, shooting star falling to the earth, and it crashes. And I believe Lady True says, that is mine. And so we're left to think, okay, what the F is that? And some people are saying, well, it could be Dr. Manhattan returning to Earth, which I don't think it is. Or it could be Ozymandias, Adrian Veidt, which is far more likely. And it seems like the connection between Veidt and Lady True is a lot, and you'll see towards the end of the episode, like, it's a lot closer and stronger than was originally let on. So Lady True, coming in hot. made her profits or made her money in advanced pharma and biotech, hence the baby. So from there, we go to the bakery where Angela Abar is cleaning up. She takes apart the wheelchair, finds the note, goes to burn the note, and then gets a call, voicemail, which this is where it gets really confusing about the time. Like, we know it's 2019, we know it's an alternate history, but the fact that you have the ability to message Mars and you have the ability to create life, genetically engineer life, and you have these other technological advancements, developments that I don't believe we've seen so far in our universe, timeline, whatever. But then they have answering machines. So, whoa, it really messes with your brain, with your nog, because they don't really have cell phones. They have pagers or beepers and then actual answering machines. Okay. I just love, and no one else appreciates this, they'll probably roll their eyes and cringe, but the fact that her bakery, when on the answer machine you hear her message says, hi, you've reached Milk in Hanoi, where Saigons can be Saigons or something like that. It's like so cheesy. I love it. I don't know why I like puns so much. No one else likes puns like I like puns. And I have to resist every goddamn day because I know how much people hate it, but I appreciate it. But the voicemail says that there's a new branch of her family tree has been discovered. The note catches on fire, which is unfortunate. And I guess the slogan for this cultural center where she's able to discover her family tree is the answer to life's mysteries is in life's histories. It's like, oh, okay, we got to, and it reminds me of the slogan for my senior year yearbook, like looking back to look forward. It's like, okay, looking back to look forward. Got it. So Abar gets all dressed up as Sister Night and she goes to the cultural center. And I like there's all these little details that Lindelof and the producers put in there that is just, I appreciate so much. And you don't have to do it. And I think but I just love these little things that it's just like you take it or leave it. I don't think it, if you omit it, it's not subtracting from the show, but when you put it in, it definitely feels like it adds to the show. She goes to the culture center. She says, I'm Angela, and the hologram interface or whatever gives her an acorn, and she's supposed to go to this ancestry, like a tree, and pop it in there to find out all the details. And I thought it's just so cool. Like, you could have just not had that and it would have been like, meh, but it makes it a little bit more memorable in my mind. But she pops the acorn in, finds there's a new branch on the family tree on her father's side. Her father's Marcus Abar, her mom's June Abar, and there's a 99.47% chance that her grandfather is Will Reeves. And they said, and the interface asks, would you like to meet your great grandparents? And so we find out her great grandparent, her grandfather's Obie Williams, who was the soldier we saw in beginning of episode 2. I believe it was episode 2, World War I, which I thought it was World War II at the time, but I guess it was World War I. So that's Obie Williams in World War I, or maybe it was World War II. I don't know. I'm like, it's hard to keep track of, but Obie Williams is her great-grandfather. Her great-grandmother is Ruth Robeson, and they had one son named Will, and that's purported to be Will Reeves. And so they superimposed the kid's face, or Angela's face, over the kid's hologram, the hologram's face. And she's just like, leave me the fuck alone, to Will, which I don't fully understand. I mean, I'm not adopted, but I've always been very curious about my family history. And I guess there's just, there are definitely people out there who have no interest, and I have no problems with that. But this one seems a little more like, why wouldn't you want to know more about Will Reeves, considering he's the guy who murdered your best friend in the police force? I would want to know everything about that person. There's some glass shattering in the distance. She runs out, and it's her car is dropped in front of Laurie Blake. So it kind of is an alternate, kind of like in Back to the Future 2, when Marty has gone to the future, but now has gone back to the past, and he can see himself playing guitar. It's not exactly like that, but it reminds me of that scene where he's kind of like, and you see Laurie laughing from a different angle. So before we saw her kind of looking up and laughing and blah, blah, this is, we see her from behind laughing, and she turns around, pulls her gun on Angela before she realizes it's her. Abar plays dumb yet again And she gets in the car and opens the glove compartment and finds like a bottle of pills. What appears to be, it's a dark bottle. So I didn't even know it was pills to begin with. I was just like, it's just a dark bottle. It kind of looks like an old timey like bottle you'd find back in the day at a general store apothecary or something like that. Like snake oil or some mustache juice or something like that. But apparently there were pills in there. We see her come back and sleep in her daughter's room. And she admits that she was scared at Judd's funeral. Next morning, wake up, and the husband, Cal, is making breakfast. He's making eggs. Abar is very open and honest with their husband, tells him about breaking into the cultural center. And then the kids are fighting, and Cal turns around and is like, hey, what's the deal? So-and-so said that Uncle Judd's not going to go to heaven. And he's like, well, there is no heaven. And in fact, before Judd was born, he was nowhere. And then he was born and he was a kid and then he was adult and then he died and now he's nowhere again. And he was just like, mm-hmm. And the kids were like, okay. I was just like, whoa, that is very interesting. And so we're getting like a deeper look at Cal now. Like we don't know a shit ton about the guy. We know that he had an accident, but we don't know what it was. We know that I guess they met in Vietnam, him and Angela. And he's got a very calm, accepting demeanor. He just seems cool as fucking ice. You know, like when Angela comes back from, I guess, her talk with Lori. And Lori's like, I talked to your husband, Cal. I'm like, Lori, you bitch. And Angela comes back and is like, basically like, I want to start a fight with you because you didn't tell me about your talk with Lori. And then Cal just goes, like, gives the most, he's like, I was 100% honest with her. I told her everything. Like, we were having sex in the closet when we got the phone call and you said this and blah, blah. And then Angela's like, oh, so you didn't say that, did you? He's like, no, I lied. So he just seems like a cool customer. And hopefully we'll learn more about him in the future episodes. So Angela goes to visit Looking Glass and she's like, and I thought this was interesting. So he's in like a kind of a bunker / tank looking thing that, you know, survivalists have. And he's got photos of squids falling from the skies. And so to me, that says like he's not accepting of this theory that the dimension, this transdimensional portal that the giant squid came through that Adrian Veidt sent to kill a bunch of people in New York to avoid nuclear war. Never thought I'd say that sentence over and over again. So he has photos of the squid. And so to me, that's him. That's like, he's a very investigative. I think he's investigating the squids falling from the sky phenomenon. He does not accept. He's not just going to blindly accept that these squids are falling through a transdimensional portal that's been opened by the giant squid. And so I think that's where you're going to see him investigate and find out that it is a government hoax, that there are that the original incident did happen, but that the continual, I guess, 30 to 40 years of squids falling from the sky and no one investigating and no one finding out the truth behind that. It's like, I think someone would have tried to debunk it by now. And I think that's what Looking Glass is up to. He's trying to find out what's really going on there. And again, he has that Rorschach vibe. So I think he's going to end up finding out the truth about it and then writing it in a journal, and then the circle of life continues. And that'll be his legacy, just like Rorschach's legacy. Although Rorschach's legacy has been tainted now by the cavalry. So ain't that a bitch? She also wants him to get the bottle of pills tested. And she mentions Looking Glass's ex, which that's very intriguing. Like, what kind of person would date and or marry Looking Glass? Love to meet her or him, but it doesn't say ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. And it could very well be ex-partner, like just a partner in crime type of thing. You know, Rorschach liked to work alone, but ended up teaming up with Dan and Lori, Silk Spectre and Night Owl in the movie, and I believe in the graphic novel. You know, Looking Glass, did he have a partner that he liked to work with, and then shit went bad, and so they don't talk anymore. So she wants to keep all this on the down low, especially away from Lori Blake, who she's been playing dumb with this whole time. This scene, you know, you have Looking Glass looking at the photos of squids falling from the skies, harkens back to the scene with Lori and Angela earlier, where Lori says, quote, I don't joke about things falling from the skies. How is that related? So we have the car falling from the sky, but it also could be in reference to the squids falling from the skies. Does Lori have inside information about the squids falling from the sky? And, you know, is that her being ironic and joking? Like, you know, she says she hates jokes or doesn't do jokes, doesn't like jokes, but she's telling jokes all the time. So it might be one of those things where it's that comment is twofold and has a double meaning, which is like screenwriting 101, bro. So she reveals the cavalry cloak or the clan cloak and mask to Hood to Looking Glass and wants him to hold on to it so Blake doesn't find out. And this is where I kind of started to wonder, how does Sister Night and Angela Abar make her money? And I've wondered this about superheroes and villains, not so much, because it's like it seems like they're always doing bad shit to make money, but superheroes are always doing good but they're not, they end up causing damage. So it's like, do they have an insurance policy? But also, how are they making money? Like, I know that a lot of these superheroes have alter egos where it's like Superman's Clark Kent. He's a photojournalist, blah, blah, reporter. And Spider-Man's also a photographer. And it's like all these superheroes have like a side gig where no one knows who they are. Angela Abar is kind of a different story because she has the bakery, but it hasn't opened yet. And it's been coming soon for years and years and years, as Will Reeves pointed out in the first episode. How is she making her money? So she's got to be like under the table secret payroll for the cops, right? Like, that's just how it goes. The other part of this is so many people know who she is. It's almost like pointless to dress up as Sister Night because Lori knows she's Angela Abar. Senator Keene knows she's Angela Abar. And these people are not close to her. It's not like family and friends. These are fucking what appears to be an arch enemy, a rival, and a very shady politician who could probably blow the lid off of everything. So it's kind of like it defeats the purpose to dress up almost. And also, how are you making your money? Those are the two big things that crossed my mind in this episode. That and her Regina King's eyes are just like, whoa, dude. Entrancing. Such beautiful eyes. That was creepy. What did Abar dump? What did Sister Night dump off the bridge in broad daylight? It was a big old bag, and I have no idea why she was doing it or what she was doing. Maybe I missed something, but it's like the cloak and whatever that she had is with Looking Glass, as is the bottle. What is she dumping? And now it makes sense to me. She was dumping the wheelchair. Okay, got it. She was dumping the wheelchair. And that's because of her meeting with with Lori Blake, where Lori Blake's like, basically revealing more and more information that she knows and saying that there was a thermodynamic miracle is what she says. And that's before Petey, Lori's little playboy boy toy, comes in and whispers something in her ear. But she also mentions to Angela in that interaction, oh, weird, there's no wheelchair. Guy like that, 100 plus years old. So yeah, that's what we end up finding out. And maybe this is after the scene. Yeah, so the bridge scene is first and then comes the meeting with Lori. So the bridge scene, she dumps what is a bag and you don't know what it is. And it turns out, yeah, it's the wheelchair because we saw her earlier in the bakery disassembling the wheelchair. She puts it in the bag, dumps it. Okay, got it. But as she's doing that, she turns around. She finds this masked vigilante type character in a silvery, shiny costume head to toe with goggles and like a tool belt that has like what looks like, the oil and vinegar plastic squeeze bottles that you see in delis. She's like, hey, stop. So he takes off. So she gives chase. And as he's running away, he douses himself in what I thought might be oil or some kind of flame accelerator. So I thought he was going to just and everyone thought this, that he was just going to set himself on fire. And when he sets himself on fire, maybe he disappears or like takes off and can fly or something like that. And it's like, nope, it's lube because the guy sprays himself and then slides into a sewer. One of the craziest things I've ever seen with these eyes. And he got the name Lube Man. And so now you're like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he like following Abar? And now there's a theory that if you look at Petey, boy toy of Lori Blake, the agent, young rookie agent, he has the same kind of stature, build, frame as this Lube Man character. So maybe Petey is Lube Man. It makes sense considering the following scene because Angela goes to the precinct. She bumps into Senator Keene, who just looks smarmy as hell. They have and that's where you find out that he knows her secret identity. And you're just like, okay, how many people know about this chick and her real identity? What's the point at this point? You don't have to completely come up with a new character, new disguise, new costume, everything. I mean, wouldn't you start to panic at that point? All right, your husband knows, your kids know, well, whatever. Your cousin knows, okay. Your sister-in-law knows, okay. And the further you go out from your family, it's like you start to, the more and more you're supposed to worry and get concerned and panic. And She just these same steely-faced gaze. I mean, she's pissed off about Keen and him knowing, but, you know, she goes to meet with Pirate Jenny and Red Scare, and they mention a new boss, and so she goes to Judd's old office, and Laurie Blake is there. That's where she tells Angela about the lead on the stolen car, the mystery prince, and it turns out to be Will Reeves, and then we get to learn a little bit more about Will Reeves, which I mentioned after episode 1 in that recap, that he's pretty much just like Hooded Justice. He was a cop in New York City in the 40s and 50s, right when the Minutemen were huge and big. He retired young, fell off the grid, just like Hooded Justice. People thought he died, and they mentioned that in that show, within the show. And there I am, dead, only that's not me. And it's Rolf Mueller, the circus strongman from Russia with a bullet hole in the back of his head. And he said, that's not me. So maybe that's how he got people to throw people off his scent from discovering his real identity. So Abar, Laurie, and Petey take a ride. They're going to go check out Lady True with the Millennium Clock. And we get to see a little bit more, peel back the layer of Laurie a little bit, even though, I mean, we already, most of us have already come to this revelation. You know, most of us know her backstory from the graphic novel, if you read the graphic novel, or if you watched the movie, or if you've just done any kind of, you know, research looking online about Laurie, you know her backstory, which is their parents are the comedian Edward Blake, which she took on her father's last name, and the original Silk Spectre, Sally Jupiter. It's Petey who reveals that Laurie's parents were their product, or the comedian Silk Spectre, and that Laurie is the product of sexual assault. But then he also mentions that, you know, that he mentions the graphic novel, but then he also mentions the show within a show, and he says that has a lot of historical inaccuracies. So you can't take everything that happens in that show, American Hero Story or whatever, Watchmen, Minutemen. Can't take that. You got to take that with a grain of salt. But then again, it's like, is this, and it's a whodunit, right? This is a whodunit murder mystery. And there are a lot of layers of the onion being peeled back, which is the greatest way to do storytelling, is to start with something and just slowly peel everything back and reveal to the audience. That's what makes this series so great, is that it's surprising and not surprising. Is that even though most of the audience is in on what's going on, they know the backstory, it's the revelation to the other characters that I guess keeps us glued to the screen. But they go to the Millennium Clock where Lady True is, and they immediately encounter what appears to be a remote controlled spaceship, which would be similar to the one that abducted Angela's car with Will in it. And then, so I know I mentioned Lady True is kind of a combination of White Rose and Lucy Liu from Kill Bill Volume 2. She also, in this context, in this scene, in this environment, reminds me of Elon Musk and like Tesla. And that, you know, but Elon Musk comes to mind, but just eccentric billionaire, trillionaire, uber rich person with like a very forward looking company and just grand aspirations, just like incredibly overzealous ambitions. So Laurie questions the worker, and then True's daughter, Bayon, invites them to sit down with Lady True, and Petey is not invited because it's ladies only. The future is female, and maybe Lady True is taking that quote to the nth degree, to the greatest extent. But she mentions, Bayon mentions that the Millennium Clock is not the eighth wonder of the world, but the first wonder of the New World. Now, New World, you know, in this context, I think maybe some of the other characters are thinking the New World is in reference to what happened since this transdimensional giant squid came and killed everything in New York. Like, that's the start of the New World. Whereas Beyond is probably referring to the new world, which is going to happen in what appears to be 3 days. Like there's going to be a huge cataclysmic event that is going to be on par with the transdimensional squid. And then we will start anew. And, you know, given Lady True's affection for and idolatry of Adrian Veidt and what he did, is she going to pull something similar and try to like do it over again, but to do it better and create this utopian society where everyone wears robes? Beyond mentions that this is the first wonder of the New World because it's far away from the ocean, impervious to seismic activity, can protect us from anything short of a nuclear blast. Laurie asks, well, what does it do? And Beyond's like, it tells time. It's like, oh, what does that mean, dude? So, I mean, it seems like it's a safe haven, you know, safe harbor, safe haven for people during a time of great emergency natural disasters, and can protect it from anything short of a nuclear blast. The nuclear blast part makes me think it would have been more interesting if she said even a nuclear blast, because then that means that, it can protect them from Dr. Manhattan. But this is apparently saying that no, Dr. Manhattan can still wipe them off the face of the earth. And also, if nuclear war comes back around, it'll destroy this Millennium Clock, which leads me to believe that they want to, knowing that a nuclear war or Dr. Manhattan can destroy the Millennium Clock. It doesn't just tell time. We know that. I mean, that's preposterous. They want to completely eradicate, get rid of Dr. Manhattan, and in tandem with that, get rid of nuclear war, because those are two things that can destroy this Millennium Clock. So, there are a lot of connections. I love connections. I always try to make connections, even when there are seemingly none. So I love that Lady True is Vietnamese and that Angela came from Vietnam and speaks Vietnamese as well. And so they have a conversation like right in front of Laurie Blake, who cannot speak Vietnamese. And True asks Angela, Will wants to know, did you get the pills? And Angela's like, he can ask me his damn self. She's still holding that grudge. But we get to see the statue of Adrian Veidt. That was an interesting interaction as well, because Laurie's like, he looks old. And Lady True is, well, he is old. That's kind of what he is, his modern version of himself, his contemporary version. And in my culture, we respect elders. And Laurie's like, well, not in America. In America, it's all about looks. So it's just an interesting dynamic there, because you can tell that Laurie is a little pissed about aging, especially in America, because Americans have a long, rich history of focusing and giving all positive attention to youth and kind of ignoring the elderly. So, that's kind of where Laurie's at right now, because she's got to be in her 50s or 60s. She can still get it, though, from Petey. From there, we dissolve to a boat in the water, and it turns out to be Adrian Veidt pulling up a basket, what looks like a lobster trap, filled with babies. And he tosses a few back, and you're like, oh, okay. Oh, damn, Adrian. And he ends up keeping a couple of the babies from the lobster trap, puts them in what looks like a chamber or a telephone booth, turns it on, gas hisses, cranks a lever, and it's like a giant microwave, and we hear gross sounds. Screams, cries, puts on some reggae, eats some cake, and I'm like, damn, this guy loves cake. Every time I see him, he's eating cake. What up with that? I didn't even bother to think that we're not, and this is where, thank God for the internet and for shows like Lights, Camera, Barstool, because they help me point out stuff like, they help me realize stuff like this, is that we haven't been seeing Adrian Veidt over the course of a couple days or a week like we have with the Angela Abar storyline and Laurie Blake. We're not seeing him over the course of weeks or days. We're seeing him on the same day over the course of what is now 4 years. So there's been four episodes, and we've now seen Adrian Veidt on the anniversary of something important every day. And I believe the anniversary is of him entering this environment or world where he's being held captive. Of course, the babies within seconds are developed into full grown adults, and it's Mr. Phillips and Mrs. Crookshanks in the machine. They can't speak yet, and so he's kind of giving them a little brief orientation as he transports them from wherever he was to the castle. And he says, and this is a huge line, I am your master, but not your maker. So it's like, okay, who is the maker? We think back to the beginning of the episode where we have the eggs and we have Lady True. And Lady True has said that she can make a baby. And so you start to see the connection between Lady True and Adrian Veidt become a lot clearer and a lot stronger. Does that mean that Lady True is actually imprisoning and holding Ozymandias captive? It's not Dr. Manhattan, and maybe this isn't even Mars. And this is where the series is getting great, because it's giving you these revelations slowly but surely, but it's also tossing in some red herrings here and there, which is also phenomenal. I love. Veidt leads them into like the kitchen area, the dining room area, this huge long dining room table, and it's just like bodies everywhere. And Veidt's like, had a rough night. We gotta clean up these bodies. And it's just like all these like dozens and dozens of bodies murdered by Adrian Veidt with like knives sticking out and everything. So he begins launching via this catapult, launching them into space. They obviously go through something. So normally if you launch the body, that catapult is not going to launch them into space. I mean, that's a great catapult and all, but like it's not possible. So you would see the person like go out in the distance, but then eventually fall. somewhere in the distance. Well, this is like the body goes up into the air and disappears, which means that the ceiling, the limit, is a lot closer to the surface than we thought. But, this is where I completely didn't even realize that it was over the course of years, 4 years, because he mentions it on the catapult, like 4 years. I've been here 4 years. When we first saw him in episode 1, a little more calm, a little more whatever. I didn't even notice the candles on the cake, to be honest. That's just, I always thought I had a keen attention to detail, but didn't pick up on that at all. It was, there was one candle on the first cake. On the episode 2, there's 2 candles. Episode 3 is 3 candles. And episode 4, I just didn't get it. I just thought the guy loved cake. I just thought he had a thing for cake. Turns out, no, these are actually, it crossed my mind. I was like, why does this guy eat so much cake? And why is he celebrating with a cake every day? Neal, come on, pick it up. The horseshoe thing, I don't know what the horseshoe thing is all about. No, I'm not even going to venture a guess on that one. Don't need the horseshoe net yet. Okay. Adrian Veidt says he looks through, I guess you could call it I don't know, you call it a telescope, but it's not like on a tripod. So you call it that I don't know what you call it. But he's looking through the telescope at the bodies going through this layer and disappearing. And he says, I will escape this godforsaken place. And as we're looking through the telescope, this circle fades or dissolves into what is the moon. So then you're like, oh, they're on the moon. Right? That's the connection there. So it's like, are they on Mars, imprisoned by Dr. Manhattan? Are they on the moon? Where is he imprisoned by Lady True? And then this was the theory that came out from Lights, Camera, Barstool that I found through that show, that this is all in his mind. It is like a video game, and it is a mind game, because we saw him hunting the buffalo, but then we saw the game warden in the last episode. Is this all a game? And then the leap from there is this all a mind game, where it's all virtual reality? It's not, none of it is real. None of it's tangible. It's all constructed to fuck with him, giving him certain luxuries and amenities. These servants, also this other stuff that he can't touch that he would love to do, giving him just enough freedom so that he doesn't completely lose his mind. Ultimately, like, he's the only person of his caliber, intelligence in this environment, which could drive him nuts. And it has. You've seen it progressively get worse. It started with in episode 2 with that play where every play he kills one of the servants to full on servant massacre. I don't think they're on the moon. I like the idea of him being imprisoned by Dr. Manhattan on Mars, but I just don't think that's it either. I think him and Lady True have a very weird, interesting relationship, and it probably went awry at some point in 2017, 16, and that's when he disappeared. And that's Lady True came up with, she's a trillionaire, so she probably, devoted a slice of that pie to miscellaneous, which is this mind game thing where she's able to contain the person that she idolized and worshipped so much. Towards the end of the episode, a woman wakes up and it's beyond. She puts on her glasses, goes to her mother and says she had a nightmare and she was in a village. Men came and burned it and made us walk. My feet still hurt. And Lady True said, good, which makes me think that Lady True has implanted memories into her daughter to keep her motivated and driven, and to keep her scared and fearful and committed to the cause. That's Lady True's memory, and she implanted it into Beyond, so that Beyond follows in her footsteps, and she carries on Lady True's legacy, which is what this entire episode. She says she won't walk her back to bed, and as Beyond is about to leave, she says, "Good night, Mr. Reeves." And you reveal that Will Reeves, alive and well, and he doesn't really seem like he's a captive. He's not in a jail or prison cell or anything like that. He's just out in the open, sitting on a chair. Lady True and Will have a discussion, a conversation, friendly conversation. But Lady True is still kind of questioning if Will's committed to the cause. So we see her able to manipulate her daughter by implanting these memories of Vietnam and the tragedies that went on there. But then she's not quite able to do it with Will yet, so that she has that lack of trust. Because she has a great deal of control over her daughter, but she's not able to exercise that same control over Will Reeves. And so she's, questioning him and says that the pills are a passive aggressive exposition, which I thought was an interesting line. And I'm trying to wrap my head around it and figure out what that means. Why are you using pills to basically talk to your daughter or your granddaughter? Why not just directly message her and tell her what's going on, as opposed to doing this dance you're doing? Because we saw in episode 2 or something like that where, you know, Angela's interrogating him and he's like, I'm Dr. Manhattan, or saying that he has like Dr. Manhattan's powers and insinuating he is Dr. Manhattan when he's clearly not. Towards the end says, when family's involved, deals get broken. And that's when Will stands up and says, my feet are just fine. So I know that's supposed to be that's supposed to be a real shock and surprise to the audience, but it isn't, because we're like, you know, he already said that he asked Angela in episode 1, do you think I can lift 200 pounds above my head or something like that? So it's like sitting in a wheelchair next to Judd Crawford hanging from the tree. Judd weighs 200 pounds. So it's like, all right, yeah. I mean, it's not a huge leap for us to go there and like blown away, but it's still a nice little, you know, it's a surprise that we expected. It's not like, oh, I saw it coming from, you know, 1,000 miles away, and it just kind of confirms our suspicions. So I think that's what's great about a mystery series like this is like you have suspicions, and then they give you little rewards here and there, little cookies to say, oh, we're confirming your suspicions. He can stand. He can probably lift. He probably hung Judd. But like also the transition from the telescope to the moon, like they're just trying to throw you off the scent, but they give you little rewards here and there. But they also toss and distract you by tossing a cookie to the side, and you go off to the side and it's like, oh, something else is going on. You find out that there's 3 more days until this event, probably involving the Millennium Clock, probably involving Ozymandias, and maybe involving Dr. Manhattan. Or True says when Abar finds out what you've done, Will, she'll hate you. And he said, I'm in all the way. And then he says, tick tock, which is just what Judd said the night of his murder. And then also it's like the mantra of the 7th Cavalry, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I don't think that doesn't mean that Will and True are on the cavalry side. I think that's just like a thing people say, you know, like Paris Hilton says that's hot. That doesn't mean that like only white supremacists say that's hot. Although, you know, make America great again. People say that. And if you say that, like Kurt Suzuki wore the hat at the Nationals trip to the White House, and people are like, oh my God, you don't know what you're saying. You're saying blah, blah, blah. You support this, this, or this. And it's like, no, Kurt Suzuki wore the hat and he has his own interpretation of it. So TikTok, I mean, I know I'm really stretching it there, but TikTok is kind of just a thing people say, and it has its own meaning to each and every person. A lot of revelations, but also a lot of questions that come from those revelations. And then we get a preview of episode 5, where it looks like it's going to focus on Looking Glass, which I'm very interested in. There's a soundbite from the preview. It says, with Looking Glass saying, we know there are other dimensions, but this is the one we live in, and we're not to fear it. And then he says, every tunnel ends with light. Almost feels like he's going to, he's making the best of his situation, the most of his situation, and trying to come to grips with his dimension, though he would like to explore other dimensions, and maybe that's burned him in the past. Like he's wanted to explore these other dimensions and find out what the fuck's going on with this transdimensional squid type thing. But maybe he got bit in the ass because of that curiosity. And so he's just trying to come to grips and accept the fact that he's stuck in this dimension. Maybe his way of coming to exposing other dimensions or exposing this government hoax is to sacrifice himself. So he knows that every tunnel ends with light. So it's like, why delay the inevitable? And it looks like they're going to hit up the church. Abar and Blake are going to hit up the church, or maybe even with Looking Glass, are going to hit up the church, where apparently that's where the 7th Cavalry is running their operation out of. That's like their front. It's the church. Makes sense. And then we see Adrian Veidt in the spacesuit getting launched. So again, time. I was viewing everything as like, this is all the same timeline. This is all happening in sequence. This is all happening chronologically. It's all happening from start to finish and front to back and blah, blah. And no, it looks like it's got a little bit of a jumping back and forth timeline, which Lindelof did with Lost. So maybe that comet falling to Earth at the beginning of the episode with Lady True on the farm, and she says, that is mine. That's Ozymandias coming back from wherever he went to. What an episode. I mean, they keep getting better every week. It's crazy. All right, I'll quickly talk about Mr. Robot. Episode 5, I didn't get a chance to talk about it last week. This one was called Method Not Allowed. Aired on November 3rd. And this is kind of, I don't know if you want to say bottle episode, but each seems like every good series that's out there has an episode that kind of stands on its own and is very unique and very different. BoJack Horseman did it one season where the entire episode was underwater. Of course, you have Breaking Bad, had the one episode where it was just them, the two of them in the lab the entire time. Even in season 3 of Mr. Robot, they had that one amazing adrenaline-fueled episode where it was the one long continuous single shot that darted and weaved around the massive skyscraper on the day of the protest that turned into a riot, which I mean, that was phenomenal television. So this one doesn't take that approach necessarily, but it was almost completely silent. Like no, not silent, but there was no dialogue. There were 2 lines of dialogue in the entire episode. Some people might view that as lazy, like, oh, okay, so you just don't have to write dialogue. How easy that for you? But it's actually one of the most challenging things in the world. So I applaud Sam Esmail for taking that chance and that risk, because I think it paid off huge. This is one of my favorite episodes. The ability to tell a story without anyone saying anything is incredible. So there's 2 lines of dialogue. One is at the very beginning of the episode where Darlene is able to track down Elliot, and she picks him up on Christmas morning. Elliot has burned the van to destroy the evidence, and Darlene picks him up and she says, "It's okay, you don't have to talk if you don't want to," or something like that. And so that's the beginning of the no dialogue. They end up breaking into virtual realty, which we saw, I guess, in the previous episode when Darlene went on that rant on the voicemail, bitching out her brother, and then ended up deleting it and then trying to steal the car from the drunk Santa. So they're back there. It's Christmas Day. And that's where Cyprus National Bank houses their servers where all their sensitive information. They're able to break in. Elliot installs a hack that is able to give them some time to get the information they need. Eventually triggers a power outage to aid their escape. And the security team calls the police, and they chase Elliot on foot. Darlene is able to escape fairly easily. And then we see the foot chase through all kinds of parts of New York, Central Park, Upper West Side, whatnot. It was very reminiscent of like Grand Theft Auto. It was just like, I'm on foot, can't get any cars, don't have any weapons, and like, how am I going to evade the police? And those are actually my favorite times in Grand Theft Auto, when it was like, I forget what it is, but it's like it goes up to 5. That's like your threat level or whatever. So if you go to 1 or 2 and you're able to evade police for long enough, it goes back down. But once you get to 5, it's like everyone is out to get you. There's like SWAT teams, helicopters, tanks. Like they call in, they impose military law, martial law. And it's just like that was my favorite one. It's like, fuck this mission. I don't care about anything anymore. I just want to see chaos. And so you do something stupid a couple times in a row and it gets up to 5 alarms, stars or whatever. And it's just like the world is just collapsing on you and you're just trying to run around. But that was a little reminiscent of that in this foot chase scene where it's like, but it's just 2 cops and they're chasing him on foot and he's able to constantly elude them by getting on the bus or on the subway or whatever. Some really good shots in that sequence as well. Eventually, Elliot is able to hop a guardrail and falls down like a cliff, and Darlene is right there waiting for him. He gets in the car, and of course, she puts his hand on hers or vice versa on the gear shift, and it's kind of like, all right, they're back. They've kind of reconciled as best as they can, and so they got that Thelma and Louise bond going on. Dom is still at the mercy of Janice, who's Dark Army. Janice sends Dom to investigate the Dark Army van, the burnt Dark Army van. The local police, or at least the one local police woman, is portrayed as kind of like not a dumbass or a moron, but just kind of just like us, or just like a basic woman. I don't know what the Ismail was trying to say with this one police woman. Other than, I don't know. I mean, she has a phone and the ringtone is Meghan Trainor's All About That Bass. I don't know what kind of commentary that is supposed to elicit or what kind of a reaction you're supposed to get. To me, it felt like, okay, maybe you're not supposed to have your phone on if you're a policewoman, and that if you are a policewoman with a cell phone, you wouldn't have the ringer on and your ringtone wouldn't be Meghan Trainor All About That Bass. Those are the kind of things that ran through my mind, was like, or they're trying to say that the local police aren't the sharpest or most professional people. When Dom is able to fool them, it makes it a little more palpable, a little more digestible. Like, okay, I get it. Like, the local police are not, like, they're not at the level of FBI or CIA. They're the local police. What information that she's able to get, it gives insider information into the investigation. So from there, Janice is able to do what she can. She ends up telling Dom to capture Darlene and Elliot, who are seen in a traffic camera. And then it's like, Dom's like, oh boy, I got to go after my crush. Philip Price, we get to see a glimpse of him. He's at a restaurant. He gets a check. And on the check, it says, give a 20 to the trombone player at this place. He does that. that. Trombone player hands him a card or something. It's an invite to the Deus Group meeting. Elliot texts Price and lets him know Tyrell won't be coming to the meeting, which did Tyrell die? I like to think he didn't, and he's going to miraculously like show up at this meeting, which would be huge. There was also the storyline with Krista. That storyline was kind of getting old. I was just like, why are we still focusing on Krista? You see her just kind of prepping for a date. But at one point she's in, this is just something I noticed at one point she's in the store, like picking up a wine or something like that. And there's stockings, and there's four stockings. The two stockings up top are of, I guess, Kate and William. Henry, whatever the prince and princess in England is, Middleton and the other one. And then below them is Jay-Z and Beyonce. And I believe it's like their little way of saying Jay-Z and Beyonce are the king and queen of the U.S. Or it could be saying like they're just as like we hold them to such a high esteem and degree. They are the American version of royalty. And if you think about royalty in England, they don't hold any kind of real power. So maybe that's a coy little way of saying like, yeah, sure, Jay-Z and Beyonce are American royalty, but also like they just like British royalty, they can't do much. Although they still have a tremendous amount of influence. So, and then Krista is confronted on the doorstep of her apartment by Fernando Vera, who was the drug dealer who was assaulting Shayla, who got involved with Elliot and eventually killed her, I believe. And now he's back. He's back in the New York groove. And he says the second line of dialogue in the episode at the end, which is, "It's time we talked." I appreciate this episode, and I think hopefully it gets nominated and wins a few awards. Darlene uses the alias Dolores Hayes, which is the real name of the girl in Lolita. The guards at Virtual Realty were watching Die Hard at their desk. Die Hard was about a big skyscraper and these terrorists taking over the skyscraper as security got wiped out. So kind of a foreshadowing there, I guess, to a degree. And then there was a lot of great music in this episode. Frank Sinatra's Mistletoe and Holly, Bob Dylan's Do You Hear What I Hear, Cassietta George's Silent Night, and then all about the bass. So Dom uses that to her advantage. That's right, because she puts the phone in the empty donut box to get the cop away from her desk so that she can then hook up the... got it. Okay. Whew. It took me a while. You know, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I never claimed to be. But I read it was a Vox article, and this episode was kind of a statement on the human condition in the 2010s, which is like the internet promised connectivity to bring us closer together, and instead we're more alone than ever. So that's kind of like on the surface what the initial thinking would be. But she goes on to say the world is rigged against any one person, but the more people who band together, the harder the world becomes to rig. We need to band together, and we need to come together to prevent the greater evils from doing more damage. But, you know, ultimately this show is about communication, conversation, and connection. Elliot severed the communication with us. You know, he used to talk to us directly, and now Mr. Robot is doing that. To defeat the forces of darkness, we need conversation and connection, especially when it's paired with empathy and honesty. There's a lot to pull from that episode with only 2 lines of dialogue. So to be able to create that conversation and connection, and it reminds me of the song, We Don't Talk Anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore. People getting ghosted. There's social media, but I find the people who are like that the best at social media are like almost the most asocial. It's important to talk, and I don't think people do that anymore. People don't want to have a conversation. People just want to shout and prove their point and win the dialogue, win the battle of chatter. I also read some other article that said that globalization is on the way down, and I guess that's I don't know if that's a direct result of Trump being like, fuck you, China, and kind of giving the middle finger to a lot of countries that I guess have been screwing us over on business deals. So there's been a reversal of globalization, which, you know, it's a two-edged sword because, you know, you outsource to other areas and it helps other areas, but then does it hurt our area? And also the conditions in those other areas are so poor and so bad, you're contributing to XYZ. Where do we go from here in Mr. Robot? The next episode's titled Not Acceptable. And I guess, Vera obviously has got his paws on Krista and is holding her hostage. And we'll get to see Olivia some more, we saw on the previous episode. So I need to watch that and get up to date. I know that the Vulture was pretty critical of it and saying that, you know, it was a gimmick and they were just doing it for the sake of doing it. And there were times where the lack of dialogue pulled you out of the episode, and it was like, no, if anything, in this time and age, most people, when they watch something nowadays, they also have a second screen or even a third screen, their computer, their phone, whatever, and they're usually got something going on that other screen. And I know that if I try to do that with a show and all of a sudden there's a long period of silence, you look up because you're like, whoa, there's no talking. There's so much talking going on in the world that we tend to phase it out and tune it out. So when you have that long stretch of silence, and sometimes and I don't know why my mind went there, but this works in stand-up comedy as well. And, you know, I used to be silent because I was like, I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to say next. But there were some people who were like, hey, I actually liked how you let the room breathe. I think they said, you know, you didn't talk nonstop. You had to let it breathe and let people absorb what you were saying. And it's like, no, actually, I just forgot what I was supposed to say. All right, it's Mr. Robot. Let's dive into the movie section. Friday night, I got to see Dr. Sleep in the theaters. It was not a disappointing movie. There were like maybe 2 or 3 moments where I was like, I wish they would have done that better. But overall, I thought it was an amazing flick. 2.5 hours long, like I said, a little on the long side, but then again, so was The Shining. It was a long movie, definitely a quicker pace than The Shining. It was expected to open to like $25 to $30 million on its first weekend, and I think it ended up grossing something like $34 million worldwide. It fell short of expectations. It got like 41% of its total gross came domestically with $14 million. Opened at number 2 at the box office, and its average per theater per screen was 3rd among wide releases. Ended up losing to Roland Emmerich's movie Midway, which took in $17.5 million domestically, but also cost like $100+ million to make. So I would think that's not exactly a win for Midway. So the $14 million domestically was you know, people calling it dismal and it's terrifying Hollywood. And I think people are overreacting a little bit because the budget, I don't believe it was like a huge budget. And I think it's got legs. You know, Midway was kind of it feels more seasonal and tent pole-ish. You know, they're trying to capitalize on Veterans Day. Dr. Sleep, you can watch any time, any place, anywhere. Co-written and directed by Mike Flanagan, who directed Hush. Great movie on Netflix. I highly recommend you check out. Probably don't watch it alone. Probably don't watch it at night in a cabin in the woods. Just watch it amongst friends in a highly populated area with access to help. Oculus, another movie that I really, really liked. Another horror movie I liked. Gerald's Game, also on Netflix, which was a good movie, but had a little bit of a pacing issue and also had one of the most horrifying scenes. And I don't even know if I've mentioned this. I think I mentioned this on one of my first episodes. Maybe. I'd have to go back. But like there's a scene and they end up duplicating that scene as a similar scene to the one I'm talking about in Gerald's Game in Dr. Sleep. And I was like, why are you going to do it to me again? I thought I was out. I thought I had wiped it clean from my memory, my brain, and nope, it's right back in there. Yikes. He also directed episodes of The Haunting of Hill House, which is an amazing series on Netflix. So he's crushing it. He actually was born in Salem, Massachusetts. So you know, talk about connectivity and being connected. That's the theme of this episode, apparently, because we had it going on in Watchmen, and now we got it going on Mr. Robot, and then we got it going on Dr. Sleep. So how is Dr. Sleep 2019 connected to The Shining 1979-1980? Well, Stephen King first got the idea for it in 1998 at a book signing when someone asked, you know, whatever happened to Danny Torrance. So that's where the genesis of the seed for this movie came about. I just think, you know, you want to talk about box office and why it didn't exactly hit. It's like, well, it's been 40 years since the first one came out. The first one is also a cult classic. It's not like it crushed the box office when it came out and it was beloved by billions all around the world. I mean, it was a cult classic that got picked up steam after a lengthy amount of time. And the people who, you know, the minority, the few people who do love it, you know, they'll show up. But also, like, what are you doing for the younger generation that hangs out at the movie theater and goes to the movie theater? Like, how do you appeal to them? And how do you make this a movie that can stand on its own, that doesn't necessarily need to lean on The Shining? And I said this to my wife at dinner. I was like, I've actually never watched The Shining from start to finish. And it's weird because there's so many scenes and that I know and memories of The Shining like that I just know, but I can't. I was like, hey, you need to walk me through the start to finish of The Shining, what goes on, I'd be like, all right, hey, you got me. So it's so interesting because we watched that documentary Room 237, which is if you want to like lose your mind, that's a recommendation from me, is Room 237. And that will also come into play when I review Stuber, ironically. So connected. That's what this theme is all about. This episode is connectivity, being connected. Sponsored by AT&T. Nope, no, it's not. There are a lot of connections to The Shining, but it does kind of go out on its own and develop new characters, new storylines, and could, for the most part, stand on its own. I don't know that you really need to see The Shining to appreciate it. You will definitely have a deeper appreciation if you watch The Shining and you know The Shining. And I think there are plenty of Easter eggs throughout to hit up that reward center in your brain, give you that dopamine. But the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that Dr. Sleep forsakes the elemental terror of its predecessor for a more contemplative sequel that balances poignant themes against spine-tingling chills. I agree. And that's why when Cassie was freaking out in the first scene, I was like, give it a sec. I don't think it's going to be as jump scary as you think it's going to be. I think it's going to be more about exploring all the different elements, and it was. Shout out me. Kudos to me. Got 76% of critics gave this a favorable review, 3.5 out of 5 stars. 90% of the audience gave it a favorable review. I'm right there with them. I give it a favorable review. The ending was a little, I don't know if I'm in love with the ending, but I did. It made sense. I'll say that. So we start in 1980, which is the year that The Shining took place. And we see that Danny and Wendy have moved on from the Overlook Hotel. They're now in Florida. And Danny is still being haunted by the woman from room 237. By using The Shining, this ability, these, I guess, psychic abilities, the ghost of Dick Halloran teaches Danny how to lock these ghosts in imaginary boxes in his mind. And so we see there's a shot of like Danny and Wendy watching Bugs Bunny. And there was actually a line in there about Bugs saying like, you can't kill me or something to that effect. And I was like, And then of course we watched Danny go down the hall and he's able to open the door. The rotting woman's there and he's able to lock her in a box. So it's like you see the beginning of him able to control these haunting visions. And then while that's going on, we have this like this cult who I didn't even know they were called the True Knot in the movie. I was just like, it's just this group. They're like a cult and they're kind of like vampires and they're not necessarily immortals. And that's kind of and then I saw Rose the Hat and she made me think of the guy from Clockwork Orange because she had the same kind of top hat. And I was like, oh, it's a nice little, I haven't seen that anywhere. So maybe I can add that in IMDb trivia and get lots of likes and feel good about myself. But yeah, the True Knot. So they're not immortal. And in order to live longer, you find out that they feast on the steam, quote unquote, of kids who have The Shining. Why kids? Because the kids, apparently the steam tastes better. It's like fresh. In order to make it taste better and to get more of the steam, they end up having to torture these kids before they die. It's pretty heavy stuff. But the leader of the True Knot is Rose the Hat. She kind of looks like the Clockwork Orange dude. And I was very impressed with the writer's ability to introduce us to this new, because I don't think, there's no mention of them in The Shining, unless I'm mistaken. I have not watched it in a long time. And when it's on, it's on. You're spending your whole day watching that because it's like, if it's on like cable with commercial breaks, like 2.5 hours, you add in another fucking 2 hours. It's like you're there for half the day, which I don't mind. It's not that bad for like a Sunday day, Saturday day in the middle of winter viewing. That's when it's best. and you can just spend the whole day soaking it in. But I don't remember them being mentioned in The Shining. So I think the writer did and it was co-written by Stephen King. So that probably makes a lot of sense in that their ability to introduce this group quickly and them able to pull off exposition in a way that didn't feel like exposition. It's like, I know it's exposition, but for the average Joe audience member, it's like you're not being talked down to, or like there's not a a hologram of something that with a guy explaining everything, a superfluous character on the peripheral explaining everything to you. It's like the way that they were able to work that into the dialogue. Very nice. By feeding on the steam, it slows their aging, right? So we fast forward to 2011 and little kid Danny is all grown up. He's now Dan, played by Ewan McGregor, who did a great job. And he's still traumatized by everything that's happened, even though he's able to lock up all these apparitions from the Overlook, and but he's still not able to, he still has a lot of haunting memories from it. So he's turned to alcohol and drugs to kind of suppress it. And he ends up getting in a bar fight. And I thought this was funny when they threw up, you see him in the bar and you see him in the bar fight. And then you see him like beat the shit out of this guy with a pool ball, and this girl's like so impressed with him, and he ends up going back to her place, hooking up with her. They do coke, and he wakes up next to her, and the text on the screen is New Jersey 2011. You get a good laugh out of the audience. Everyone's like, yep, that's totally New Jersey. And it's like, we're in New Jersey and we're laughing about like that is rock bottom is New Jersey. He didn't even specify where in New Jersey. It was just New Jersey 2011, and that got a laugh from the audience. It was like, yep, that's us. We are rock bottom. So he wakes up next to the girl who's naked, and there's like vomit next door, and you're like, ugh. And then he tries to leave, looks in his wallet, sees there's no cash, and he goes to steal her money, and then he sees that there's a kid, and I mean everyone's heart just broke at that moment. And I know Cass was just like, oh, it's like you can't do that to a mom. You can't just show a kid being that neglected, even though it was like 1 or 2 steps above what we did on Sunday, just like being completely oblivious to what's going on, but not to that point. So he wants to steal back, and then Danny Halloran shines in, I guess. I don't know. It's like, chill, don't do that. She's down on her luck. You're better than that. I thought that was interesting. And that's kind of like, I guess that is really officially his rock bottom, because after that, you see him move to the small town in, I guess, New Hampshire, Fraser, New Hampshire, and he befriends Billy Freeman, who gets him a job, becomes his AA sponsor, and begins to rehab. He ends up talking to the leader of the AA group, who happens to be a doctor, and he kind of hints at his shining abilities, and the doctor ends up pulling him into his office, and they talk some more, and that's how he gets his job at the hospice, and the doctor's like, you don't have any problems with dead people, do you, or people dying? And he's like, no, I don't. Nice little addition. They have a cat, like a white cat, who goes into the rooms of the patients who are dying, and then Danny follows the cat into the room, and he is able to use his shine abilities to comfort dying patients, and that's how he gets the nickname Dr. Sleep. He also begins receiving telepathic communications from Abra Stone via the blackboard in his room, where he pays $85 a week, which is a unbelievable deal. But he also can't make any noise or party, which kind of sucks. But Abra Stone is a young girl whose shining is extremely powerful. She's also located in New Hampshire, and so she's communicating with Danny through this chalkboard. And while that's happening, we see Rose the Hat with her, I guess, lover Crow. Crow kind of looks like Edward James Olmos in a movie that I can't remember, but he's also wearing a hat. They aren't really into hats. I don't know what the significance of the hat is, or the hats. I don't know. Can't figure it out. But Rose and the Crow go to a movie, and they end up recruiting this girl, 15-year-old girl, Lolita type-esque girl. Again, connectivity to Mr. Robot, Dolores Hayes. What up? A teenager who's nicknamed Snakebite Andy, because she lures pervs, pedophiles to movie theaters, I guess, to places under the illusion that she will go on a date with them knowing that she's an underage girl. And then she's like a pusher. So she's able to push them into a state of sleep, and then she ends up cutting them into, I guess, what looks like a snake bite type thing on their cheek. I don't know if she kills them, though. Maybe she puts them into such a deep sleep that they end up dying. I guess maybe the snake bite is enough they wake up with a snake bite and they're like, whoa, I got to stop my ways. But yeah, she's able to control people telepathically. And so we see Rose and the Crow recruit her, and we see that whole initiation into the cult, into the group, whereby I guess they like take canisters of steam that this group holds. They take the canister and they chant some bullshit, and then they breathe the steam into Snakebite Andy, and she's like, that was horrifying, but I feel great. So she's in. Fast forward 8 years later. So I thought that was like kind of nuts how they just skipped over 8 years. And like, okay, Ewan McGregor has cleaned up his act. He's no longer has a beard. He's shaved his beard and he's looking like he's got his act together. And he's speaking at AA and he's saying how opening up about his father, Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson in The Shining, and how he thinks that his dad would be proud of him. The fact that he's able to do what his dad tried to do but wasn't able to do. And talking about legacy, which we also talked about in Watchmen. Damn, man, there's so much goddamn connectivity here. Anyway. 8 years later, 2019. It is nuts, though, that they skip over 8 years. So he's just going to communicate with this entity person that he's never seen or known through this blackboard for 8 years. And that's just how it's going to grow. But in 2019, 8 years later, True Knot, they're hard up for some steam, dude. Big time. They need that steam. And I love how Rose the Hat, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who I kind of failed to realize. Rebecca Ferguson is the woman that was in Men in Black International, who I criticized that casting choice at the time. Because I was like, Rebecca Ferguson is most known for her role in the Mission Impossible franchise, which I've kind of tuned out after, I think 2 it was, but it's like came back around. It's amazing now. But she's a big part of that franchise. And so she was in Men in Black International as like this very iconic, legendary figure that everyone's talking up throughout the movie. In Men in Black International, they just keep mentioning her name. They keep saying she's like the most ruthless, blah, blah, villain, evil, because she dated one of the Men in Black, Chris Hemsworth's character in Men in Black. And then the reveal is her, and you're like, oh, so that's it? Like, it's just this actress who I don't really know. That was Rebecca Ferguson. And so she is now, and I'm like, this woman looks familiar. Turns out, yeah, it's the chick from Men in Black International. And she plays Rose the Hat, and she does a fairly good job. I mean, who am I, right? Who am I? But I'd say she did a pretty good job. Could have done a lot worse. I will say, and there's no other way to say this. I don't know how to say this. I know this is toxic. It's very toxic masculinity coming through the airwaves right now. But man, the cans on this woman. Oh my God. I know we're not supposed to talk about that, but if we can all agree that John Hamm has a ham in his pants, we can agree that Rebecca Ferguson is packing a punch in the chest region. Let's call it how it is, folks. I noticed it. That was something I noticed during the movie. I was like, whoa. Didn't notice it in Men in Black International, ironically. Weird. I think they maybe tried to downplay it. They did not downplay it in this movie. It's like your shirt can barely cover your belly button because of your gifts from above. So yeah, so she's the leader and she's meditating. She's trying to figure shit out. She's like, we need to find that steam, yo. And like Crow comes up and he's like, yeah, everyone's talking about how we don't have steam and we're falling apart. And Grandpa, whatever his name is like basically on his last signing his last will and testament. And they're able to track down this boy named Bradley Trevor, I believe is double first name, which my wife hates, which I find so funny. It's like, how do you hate that? Bradley Trevor, I think is his name is. And he's like this all worldly baseball player, but that's like little league. And it turns out he has a shine. And that's why he's so good at baseball, because he knows what the pitcher's about to throw. They go to scout him out in Iowa. And the Bradley Trevor is played by Jacob Tremblay, who does another bang up job. I don't know if I loved him in Good Boys. I liked him. I think he did well, but I was not like, oh, wow, this is incredible. But he does an outstanding job in this movie. And if you've seen it, you know the scene I'm talking about, where they abduct him and they take him to this abandoned, industrial complex type thing in the middle of Iowa. And they proceed to just, it was hard to watch. But Jacob Tremblay puts on such a unreal performance during that scene. And here's a hint as to what he did. This is on IMDb trivia. According to director Mike Flanagan, the performance of Jacob Tremblay during the first take of his death scene. Yeah, spoiler alert. What do you want me to do? I mean, this is for people who have seen the movie. Okay. Non-spoiler review, see the movie. Spoiler, here we go. So I'm talking to people who've seen it. According to Mike Flanagan, the director, the performance of Tremblay during the first take of his death scene was so intense that it surprised and scared the other actors, including Rebecca Ferguson, Rose the Hat, who was so horrified she was stammering and couldn't get her lines out. When the scene was over, a grinning Tremblay jumped up, covered in fake blood, high-fived his father, and walked over to the craft service to get a snack, leaving Ferguson and the rest of the cast shell-shocked and traumatized. Okay, a couple things about that. First of all, he's the one getting tortured, and he's the one who ended up traumatizing the other actors. So he's not it's like such a role reversal. That makes me laugh out loud, LOL. But the fact that Jacob Tremblay, I don't know how child actors do this and not come away scored. Can you imagine being 6 and doing that scene? I guess he's not 6. He's like more like 12, but still 10, 11, 12, even 13. You don't even have pubes yet. And you pull off that kind of performance and it's like so horrifying, but yet you can jump up, high five your dad and go get some snacks. Like, whoa, dude, what kind of person are you going to grow up to be? You could be a serial killer. It's just so crazy that you see that scene and you're like, I don't know how this cast is able to do this on this kid. And the whole time I'm thinking, as I'm watching the scene, like the toll it must be taking on this kid to have to pretend like he's getting just ripped to shreds, like slowly ripped to shreds. That they're just slowly cutting him up and sucking on that steam. At this point, Abra is, I don't know, I'm not good with kids' ages. I assume she's 13, probably like a little bit older than Bradley Trevor. She senses the event. She actually feels what's going on with Bradley in Iowa, even though she's in New Hampshire. And she alerts her distress, alerts both Danny and Rose. And so Rose is like, I got you. And you're a big one. Abra's like Rose's great white whale, Captain Ahab. And that whale. So Rose is Captain Ahab and the great white whale is Abra. So Rose sets her sights on Abra. Abra visits Dan. Dan's like, get the fuck away from me. I've moved on. You should just keep your head down. Don't draw attention to yourself. Rose is able to astral project into Abra's mind, but Abra has set a trap for her. And that's that scene I was talking about. That was in Gerald's Game. If you've seen Gerald's Game, spoiler alert, it gets pretty gnarly towards the end. And the same thing happens in this movie where Rose is trying to go into the filing cabinets where all the secrets and information that Abra has stored over the years. And Abra manages to shut the filing cabinet on Rose's hand. And it's so tight that Rose has to slowly pull her hand out from the filing cabinet. And it has I'm getting nauseous thinking about it. But it has a term called degloving. You're degloving your hand, where you're just pulling the skin off of your hand. So she's wounded, but at the same time, Rose knows where to find Abra, so that she sends up the true knot. The true knot, Crow is like, you can't come. So this is where it gets a little dicey, and I can see where people would take issue with it. And I think even my wife pointed out was okay, so now they know where Abra is. They go as a group, the entire true knot, but then Crow goes to Rose and is like, you might want to sit this one out. She can't see you coming. She can't know you're coming. It's best if you just stay behind. Don't worry about it. We got this. And it's just pretty sure Abra knows who's coming and when. She's all powerful. So that was a little weird. But then I think it's just a plot device because I guess they didn't want to set it up so that Abra is working her way. It has to set up the final battle between Rose and Abra. Probably could have figured out a better way to do it. The way they executed it was still pretty cool. So Danny, the cat, leads Azriel, which is the angel of death. So I thought that was a cool name to give the cat because it's the angel of death. Leads Danny to a room, and initially you're like, whoa, who the fuck is that? Because it's a dark, shadowy figure. It turns out to be Halloran. It's Halloran, turn out light guy. Come on. But he's like, you gotta protect Abra just like I protected you. I didn't ask for you to come into my life. You came into my life. I protected you. She's coming into your life. You need to do the same. So he's like, all right. So he convinces Billy Freeman. He has to go to Billy Freeman and tell him the whole shebang, and somehow convinces Billy to go with him to Iowa to dig up this glove. and then retrieve the glove and bring it back to Abra so that Abra can touch it and then figure some shit out. And I guess the whole logic behind this is that because Danny is older, 40 plus years old, his shine is not as either alluring or as bright as Abra's. So he's kind of been flying under the radar when it comes to the True Knot. So the True Knot can't, once you get to a certain age or you get older, you're no longer on their radar. Makes sense, I guess. But that's where we really get to see Billy and Danny bond as they took up the kid. And Billy tells that story about deer hunting. And it's like, I remember when I killed that deer, it smelled just like this. And so that's when they find the body, and you're like, Billy starts vomiting, and you're like, I think I'm going to vomit. Are you going to vomit? It's like that scene from Family Guy where they take the Ipecac or Apicac or whatever that is and start vomiting over each other. It's like, here we go. So they then take the glove to Abra's house, and they're able to, of course, her father is like livid at first, and then she's able to communicate with her father telepathically. And so that's when he's like, all right. And then the scene where he's like trying to pour the liquor, the scotch into the glass, and he's shaking like crazy, and he's like offering it to the other people, and they're both in AA. So they're like, no, thanks. I thought that was a great touch. So they're able to lure the cult members into that like wooded area. And this is a tough scene to watch. I mean, they're able to, so this is the thing that was very interesting to me is how it seems how easy it is to kill these cult members. True Knot. Like vampires, you have to put a stake through their heart. And it's like garlic. They don't like garlic and they don't like light, but that would be a slow death. This is just like, you can just shoot them anywhere and they'll die. Your brain has been trained over the years that it's like, oh, there's a monster, and the monster only has one weird weakness that you have to hit at a certain angle at a certain time, and and it's like, nope, you just gotta shoot them. Like they turn to dust. But that was kind of cool and badass how they were just taking out one by one each of the members with the rifles, the deer hunting rifles, and that's where the deer hunting comes in related to that, where they dig up the body. And then now it comes into play because they're able to take out the cult members, True Knot. But you want to talk about, I don't know the last time that this happened, where I audibly gasped. My wife gasps all the time, but where I audibly gasped, and I was just like, oh, fuck. When Snake by Andy gets shot, so she's about to shoot Danny. Danny's on his back. Snake by Andy is standing over him. She's about to take a shot, and she has to say that one line that all bad guys do. That it's like, you're wasting time, guy. But she ends up getting shot by Billy, who comes to the rescue. And as Billy's about to finish her off, and she's turning to dust, because she takes longer to turn to dust than the others. I guess she's younger. I don't know. She just throws real quick, looks right into his eyes and says, kill yourself. And you see him he kind of eyes glaze over, and then he takes the rifle and boom, blows his head off. And it's just like, oh, that sucks. That was like, oh, I was, yeah. I react just like I'm reacting now. It's just like, oh my God. That really, it took a chunk out of me for sure. So Crow Daddy, apparently he was not with that crew. Oh, okay. So when they're they're surveying the scene, and they're like, I think we got everyone. And then Abra's like, no, there's still one. I'm still not. There's two left, or there's one left. I can't track him down, or I don't know where he is. Blah blah. And then that's when you see a syringe go into her neck as she's sitting on the kitchen table, and it's Crow Daddy. So he drugged her, and as you see him carrying her out of the house, you see her dad dead, stabbed on the floor. Ugh. At this time, Dan's able to communicate with Abra. For so long, he's been suppressing the shine, quote unquote, and now he's trying to bring out the pump up the shine, dance. And he's able to finally communicate with her, and he's able to, I guess, project into her body. That's when, Crow Daddy keeps threatening to shoot. And this is a great sequence, because it's Crow Daddy driving in the van. He's got Abra in the middle seat. She's all drugged up, but Danny's able to communicate with her and get into her. And before that happens, before Danny's able to project into her, they keep cutting to Crow Daddy threatening Abra and saying, I'll shoot you. And every time he says that, his hand goes to this holster on the side where the gun is. So that's the threat, that's the ominous threat. And they keep going back to that and back to that. So finally, Danny's like, your arrogance is going to be the death of you. And that's when he is able to use his powers through Abra to turn the wheel into a tree. And what you noticed is that when Crow Daddy went to go touch his gun, he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. So that's when he flies through the windshield and he dies. And then Rose feels it, and Rose is like pissed. Like, that's my lover. You don't kill my lover. That frees Abra. She comes out of her daze. And then Rose is like, takes all of the steam, whatever steam is left, because there was a steam shortage, basically. In 2019, there's a steam shortage for the True Knot. And so they're looking for that big score, and they were able to get it with Bradley, but it's like Abra's the big white whale that can help save them all. And ironically, they all end up dying. Dan is like, listen, Abra, you're powerful and all, it's great, but the two of us cannot defeat Rose on our own, which I also was a little suspicious of, because I was like, I don't know, I think Abra's done a pretty good job. I know Rose is like gonna be pissed and like at all time fever pitch, but like I feel like you guys can take her. And so that's when he decides to return to the Overlook in Colorado. And of course, Abra gets the call on her phone from the mom. The mom is like devastated. She's at the crime scene where the dad was stabbed to death, and is like, "Where are you?" And Abra's just like, "I love you," and hangs up and tosses the phone. I was like, oh my God. As a parent, like, you're just like, oh. Whew. So they return to the Overlook, which has been abandoned for 40 years, all boarded up. And Danny believes that he can turn Overlook against Rose. So that's when he starts up the hotel's boiler, explores the building, wakes it up, revisits the room where he started to lose his dad, Jack Torrance. And this is where I was like, oh yeah, here we go. Because he's approaching the bar, that famous shot and scene where Jack Nicholson sits at the bar and he gets served by the ghost bartender. And they kind of recreate that scene with Danny. Danny sits at the bar and you see the bartender's hands, the ghost bartender's hands. You see him pour the whiskey just as the ghost bartender poured the whiskey for Jack Nicholson. And I'm like, if they reveal this ghost bartender to be motherfucking Jack Nicholson, whoa, dude. Kudos to everyone involved, because I haven't seen any mention of that anywhere. No one has talked about it. And this is what happens when you go on opening night. Hell yeah. I'm at the forefront of something big, as opposed to being the last grape on the grapevine. I cannot wait for this reveal. It's going to be amazing. Everyone's going to lose their shit. And they show the hands, and then they slowly reveal who it is. And it's just an actor. It's just an actor who kind of looks like Jack Nicholson, didn't really sound like Jack Nicholson too much. And I was like, oh God, if there was ever a time to use deepfake technology, this is the time. Yeah, I understand Jack Nicholson is getting up there in age, and probably he's kind of let himself go. If you ever seen a Lakers game, like, he pretty much phones it in, which, fuck it. Or Jack Nicholson, I would do the same. But I thought, like, man, that would have been a huge opportunity to deepfake that shit and just have him, we have de-aging now with Will Smith and Gemini Man and Robert De Niro and The Irishman. We've been talking about that. We're talking about deepfake. You tell me you can't de-age Jack Nicholson and then deepfake him onto this actor's face or head. I mean, I don't know. And, they didn't have Shelley Duvall. I mean, I guess they could have done the same with just Shelley Duvall, because there were plenty of scenes with Wendy Torrance in the beginning of the movie and whatever, and they could have done the same thing there, where the actress that they got to play Wendy was, I guess, similar to Shelley Duvall. So it's like, I don't know. I don't mind that, but like, ooh, huge missed opportunity, I think, to throw Jack Nicholson in there. But that's where Danny kind of works out all his issues with his father and saying, I'm not going to succumb. I've been through this and blah, blah, blah. And he kind of works out his issues. So Rose arrives on the scene. They pull her into the astral plane in the form of the hedge maze, try to trap her in one of the boxes, no dice. Rose wakes up. It looks like so Abra escapes. Danny tries to attack Rose. Rose gets the upper hand and ends up stabbing him in the leg. So he's kind of bleeding out and is unable to use his leg. And right as Rose is about to finish the deed, Danny unlocks all the boxes that he has stored all these apparitions and ghosts in, and they come out in full force and they attack Rose and they end up killing her, taking all her steam. But then they turn to Danny, and Danny can't run or escape, and so they end up, I guess, infecting him. And so that's when Danny picks up the axe, and we start to see him recreate what his father Jack was going through. And so he's kind of hobbling through the overlook, chasing Abra with the axe. So that was a cool little homage. Abra ends up escaping, and Danny ends up going to the boiler room, and that's where he sacrifices himself. So then we cut to, which I don't know if that was necessary, but I guess, you've been haunted all these years. You don't really see any end in sight. It's kind of like, maybe I should just end this. And that was kind of a theme from the movie that we'll see in this next scene, where Abra's talking to Darren's spirit, which was very reminiscent of, I guess, Star Wars, where, you see it towards the end of the movies, the ghosts come back and you can interact and talk with the ghosts. And so Abra's talking, just as Dan was talking to Halloran's spirit, Abra's now talking to Dan's spirit. This is where this got a reaction from me, but where he leaves her, one of the last things he says to her, so they have this conversation, blah, blah, it's going to be all right, blah, blah. And he goes, "Shine on, Abra, shine on." It's just like, oh my God, dude. No, don't say that. Shine on, Abra, shine on. Reminds me of that song, and I said this to my wife when we were leaving. Like, there's a song from like the 90s or something like that, early 2000s, where it's like, and it's from, it was in the movie Twister. That's how she knew it, because she loves Twister, where they're saying like, shine on, shine on. And that's, I can't believe that song didn't play when he said that. What's nuts is Abra and her mom are still in the same house that they were in when the father was murdered. Get out of that fucking house, dude. Why are you still in that house? And I said that to my wife, and my wife's like, well, how are you going to sell that house? Like, you can't sell that house now. Like and I guess the realtor, and I have realtor friends, so maybe they'll chime in and let me know, but real estate agents, do you have to disclose that there was a murder in the house? Ugh. And it's like, I don't care how long it takes to sell that house. This is like, get out of that house, dude. It's got bad juju. Don't want to be in that house at all. I would definitely move out of the house at a loss for sure. So I couldn't believe they were still in the same house. But then we finished with Abra confronting the ghost of the rotting women from the Overlook. And she's able to, she's now equipped to lock up the ghost, just like Danny did. So I thought this was interesting. When Dan first meets Abra in person, she suggests that he pose as her uncle and calls him Uncle Dan throughout the movie as a term of endearment. And in the novel, apparently they are related, as Abra's mother is Dan's half sister. Which, thinking about it, because Jack Torrance had an affair on Wendy before losing his job, that made sense, because you look at the actress they got to play Abra's mother, and she is like very similar to Wendy Torrance. Although it wouldn't be Wendy, would be the mom. But it was just interesting that they cast an actress who kind of reminded you of Wendy Torrance. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I like that connectivity. They didn't explore it in the movie, but that would be an interesting reveal as well. So that's Dr. Sleep. I was going to talk about Stuber. Stuber came out July 12th, same weekend as Crawl. It was made for just about the same budget as Crawl. The budget was $16 million. Took in 22.3 domestically, and did not do well internationally. I don't know what the hell happened there. 7.2 million internationally for our worldwide box office of 29.6 mil. Hour 33 minutes, open at number 4 behind Crawl, Toy Story 4, and Spider-Man Far From Home. It dropped to 6 in week 2, 8 in week 3, and then fell out of the top 10 in week 4. Got Dave Bautista, former WWE wrestler, as Vic Manning. And I gotta say, Bautista has taken tremendous strides in his acting career. I think, it's very impressive to see his foray into acting and how he's really blossomed and developed. I mean, he had a pretty good role in Blade Runner 2049. Thought he did well there. Guardians of the Galaxy, obviously, and then he's got this. And I think, he's got a pretty decent career ahead of him, because he did a really good job in this one as well. Kumail Nanjiani is Stu, who's an Uber driver, and that's how you get Stuber. Mira Sorvino is Angie McHenry, the captain, police captain. Natalie Morales as Nicole. And then you have Betty Gilpin from Glow as Becca. Karen Gillan, who is also in Guardians of the Galaxy with Bautista, as Sarah Morris, who's Manning's rookie partner. Jimmy Tatro, who's a YouTuber, who was in 22 Jump Street, and a bunch of other movies as Richie Sandusky, who's Stu's boss at Outside the Box, a sporting goods store. The movie was directed by Michael Dowse, who directed Goon, Take Me Home Tonight, and episodes of Future Man, Preacher, and Man Seeking Woman. I love Man Seeking Woman. Sucks that got canceled, but I guess I can see how that, a short lifespan. Preacher, who I haven't watched yet, but is from Seth Rogen. I've heard mixed reviews. Future Man, which has the kid from Hunger Games, which I watched an episode with my wife. She didn't like it, and I was like, I kind of like this, so I might have to binge watch that on my own. But obviously, Michael Dowse has some kind of connection to Jay Baruchel. And what's ironic, and I mentioned this before, is that Dowse actually did a short on Room 237 from The Shining. So again, damn y'all, this is connected as fuck. This episode is connected as fuck. Okay. This was written by Tripper Clancy, who does not have a ton of big credits or anything like that. He's kind of new, I guess, to the game, to the scene. But this is a promising start. I guess Tripper Clancy, great name. The critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that though it makes a strong case for future collaborations between Kumail Nanjiani and Dave Bautista, which I would love to see. I think they had pretty good chemistry, and I think that they're probably not going to get a sequel because it did not do great at the box office. But you find, this is a good stepping stone. Anyway, Stuber fails to mesh its contrasting genres, setting for an overly violent, mildly entertaining diversion that's far from a 5-star ride. Critics, gotta love them. Overly violent, I could see that. Maybe mildly entertaining. I don't know if it was mildly entertaining. Of course, 42% of critics gave it a favorable review, but 79% of the audience gave it a favorable review. And I tend to side with the audience than I do critics because they're stuck up, y'all. Spoiler. Karen Gillan is only in the movie for 5 minutes. She's the rookie partner of Dave Bautista's character, who's murdered in the opening scene. Of course, Vic tries to avenge her death by getting this drug lord Tejo. But he also has to get laser eye surgery. So I thought that was an interesting little twist, is that the whole reason for him hooking up with Stuber is that he has this laser eye surgery and he cannot drive. I would have liked to see him wear those glasses a little bit longer. I feel like that. I know they probably thought, it's a running gag and it's going to get tired after a while, but to see every person he comes into contact with, because that happens. You got something off about you, and like everyone you meet has to say something about it, and they all have their different way of looking at it. So I was kind of disappointed that, when he meets Stu and Stu makes a comment about his glasses, he's like, "Oh, am I driving you around to all the Sarah Connors in the area?" The reference to Terminator. He then ditches the glasses. I was like, that would have been sweet if he just kept them on. Then everyone he meets has like their own funny one-liner. No dice on that. I sympathize with Stu and Becca about his Becca situation. Becca, played by Betty Gilpin. The fact that she was involved with this NBA player or whatever, and she friend zones him. But then you find out that he's had casual sex with her before, and now she wants to have casual sex with him again. Drunken casual sex that, the first go around, she like wiped it from her memory, just forgot about it, doesn't talk about it, doesn't bring it up. And meanwhile, he's in love with her. So it's like, been there, done that. And I thought that was a great character arc for him. Catalyst. Bautista's character wants him to man up and tell this woman how he feels. And so like, you can't keep doing this because it's like, it's torturing him, and she's not aware of it. So it's just a bad situation. So that's toxic in its own right. But then Stu is trying to get Vic to bust out of his, toxic masculinity and negligence toward his daughter. So they all got the problems and they're trying to work through it together as they're chasing this Tejo. I thought the male strip club scene was pretty funny. It's pretty good. They had the guy from Shameless, who I didn't realize that he's that like jacked and shredded. I think he got that way in the past like couple of years, but because I've only watched the first few seasons of Shameless. So the male strip club, I thought that was a good scene where Stu's like trying to work through some shit with the male stripper as he's FaceTiming Becca. And then, of course, the other stripper walks behind him with a fucking rocket. Dear God. Those exist, huh? All right. I can't imagine it takes one hell of a woman or a man. The investigation leads them to a house in Long Beach where they rescue a dog. Stu accidentally shoots one of the perps in the leg, and that leads them to an animal hospital so they can get more information out of the thug. I like this scene. It is kind of crazy, though, that these bad guys, and this is where it pulls you out of the movie because it's like these bad guys just love fucking talking, dude. And it happened later on in the movie too, where it's like, And I know it's a comedy, it's a movie, whatever, suspend your disbelief. But like the amount of times you see these bad guys talk and talk and talk and not just shoot. If you just shoot, movie's over. But I guess they can't have that happen. It just feels like maybe that will bump it up a little bit more in critics' minds. Like, who would realistically talk while you have the shot? Just shoot. You talking is not going to make it anything better. That person's going to be dead. But maybe that's the point about humans, is that they feel the need to, when committing a sin or something bad, they need to it's like repent. You know, it goes back to that old Catholic way of thinking or religious way of thinking. And like, I'm going to commit a sin, so I'm going to need to vent and repent and confess to get it out, to make me feel better about what I'm about to do. Maybe, I don't know. That's one hell of a spin zone, Neal. Thanks. The other major qualm I had with Stuber, and this is pretty much like a necessary, I guess, plot point beat in any comedy movie or any movie for that matter, is the low point. The lowest of the low point right before the climax, when a duo has to come back together. And I actually hate this plot point, this beat in every movie. And you see it and it feels forced unless it's done right. Like Superbad kind of made sense, but even when I was watching that, I was like, oh, well, here comes the obligatory conflict boiling to a head that where they argue and fight, and it just seems so dumb. That's what happens when Vic and Stu go to Outside the Box Sporting Goods, where Stu works, because Vic's trying to stockpile weapons. That's when they get into that altercation. It seems very drawn out when they have the two protagonists, the two buddies, kind of. And, you know, I feel like it's something that they always teach in Screenwriting 101. And they say, you know, it's the point where, almost the point of no return, where our two buddies split up and it looks like they're never going to come back together. And that's why you're rooting for them to come back together. And you're like, no, don't fight, don't do this. And I don't know what it is about me or how movies are, but like, it just doesn't sit well with me, and it never has. And even in something like Superbad, which is considered a classic, you know, I just don't think it works. I mean, they made a whole Marvel movie about it, like Civil War, you know, it's Tony Stark's team versus Captain America's team, and you're sitting there like, they already announced like 18 more movies in this friggin' franchise, and you want me to sit through these 2 hours knowing full well that these people are not going to kill each other? It's like, they're fighting for what? They just keep fighting each other, and it's like, well, you're not going to kill the guy, but you just want to beat him into a, like, it just, in Stuber, they wanted this to be a comical fight on par with the long fight from They Live with Roddy Piper and the guy from Men at Work. I can't believe I don't remember his name. Like a very long, drawn out fight, similar to what Family Guy does, where they really string it out and draw it out to the point where you're like, this is stupid, and then it becomes so absurdly long that you're forced to laugh. And I don't know, I never got the laugh from this fight. It just felt like, where is this going? What are they doing? I think they tried to one up how funny each of the blows were, and it's just like, all right. I mean, you know, maybe it could have been a little bit better there. But Jimmy Tatro comes in, the boss, Stu's boss comes in, and at that point you realize that, which I thought was not a bad resolution for that conflict between Stu and his boss. I guess his name is Ralph. Jimmy Tatro's character fully knows that, and feels bad that he's the son of the owner, the store owner, and he knows that, and he feels like insecurity about that, and he tells Stu about it, and then he says, you're my best friend, and Stu's like, whoa, what? Like, you're my best friend, you're my worst enemy. And so there's that disconnect there. Has that happened to me? Yeah, it kind of has happened to me. You know, where you think you have a certain relationship with someone and they view it a completely different way. That's definitely happened to me a couple of times. So clueless. So that felt real. And funny story about Jimmy Tatro. I actually met him when I went out to VidCon. I was working for Dailymotion, the French YouTube. And VidCon was like all YouTubers and Viners and screaming tween girls. I mean, you want to see something funny? Go to VidCon and watch these massive bouncers and security guards and bodyguards try to navigate their celebrity, the YouTuber. There was a sea of tween girls. It is hilarious because you can't get physical with them. You're a grown-ass man. You're 6'9", 300. You can't be like stiff-arming and pie-facing tween girls. But there was I guess some kind of industry after party at Disney World, Disneyland. It was some kind of club that looked like it was by Disneyland. I went with a couple coworkers to this one bar, and Jimmy Tatro was there. And dude, I like to party. I like to drink. Jimmy Tatro was terminated. He was obliterated. Couldn't barely stand, could barely talk. But a part of me also thought, this guy's a YouTuber. Is this like just a YouTube video that he's doing? Where's the camera? There's got to be a camera somewhere because this feels like an act. And then we ended up going to my coworker and I ended up going to Denny's later that night, just to get some late night eats, drunk eats. And he was there with his crew and making a scene, just being loud as hell. That's my Jimmy Tatro story. I thought he did an okay job in this. There were a couple of lines here and there that got a laugh. Not exactly a tour de force, but not like awful either. The other beef, I guess, I had with the movie was Captain McHenry, Mira Sorvino. Turns out she's the dirty cop who's the mole inside the organization who ends up trying to frame Vic for everything that's going on because she's getting a slice of the pie from Tejo, wants to keep that gravy train rolling along, and Vic's getting in the way, but she's very expertly set up Vic at the male strip club, at the house in Long Beach. Everywhere he's gone, he can now pin him to a bunch of places where bad shit's happening, and it's like he's the common thread. I don't think it was much of a surprise or a reveal to anyone. I remember when that first scene she had with Vic, I was like, that's the bad guy. Like, there's probably a bad cop, some kind of mole involved in this movie, and that's the one, Mira Sorvino. It was a little too chummy, just something was awry in the state of Denmark. Is that what they're saying? Probably not. And then when Mira Sorvino, Captain McHenry goes to Vic's daughter's art show, and she just lays it on really thick. And even the daughter's like, I couldn't help but notice. It's like, you probably want to tweak that scene a little bit so that McHenry is a little more natural and then just has one little minor slip up that the daughter notices. And it's like, yeah, it seemed a little weird, but that was like, you're really coming on hard and strong. So that the reveal, it's like, I'm the dirty guy. You're like, yeah, we knew. Stu admits his love to Becca, and Becca's like, and he's like, do you love me? And she's like, I just want to be friends. So he kind of stands up and becomes a man, I guess, through that. That last fight scene where it's like Tejo had multiple opportunities to shoot them. I like we're going to have everyone call an Uber to the same place. And it looks like an Uber SUV and look like the FBI. And that worked for like a minute before the guy gets out. And he's like, do you call an Uber? And it's like, as soon as that happens, Tejo needs to attack, and he didn't. There's always that whenever you're dealing with a cop movie, whenever there's partners, buddy cop movie, one of the partners takes the bullet for the other. And so they lay the groundwork early in Act 1, or maybe Act 2, where Vic, when he first gets in the car, and Stu says, you ever take a bullet? And he goes, you think that you can move faster than a bullet? And he's like, yeah, I guess that's pretty dumb. And they also so there was a good setup punch in my mind. It's like they went through all the common cliches and tropes and stereotypes in buddy cop movies where it's like, you ever shoot out wheels at full speed? It's like, that's impossible. And then of course he tries to do it later in the movie, and I think this actually succeeds. I guess the other thing that I was questioning a little bit was I like the LASIK eye surgery. My LASIK surgery story is I didn't have LASIK surgery. I know someone who has had LASIK surgery, but it reminds me, top ahead, one of my first days on my new job back in January 2010, our department at Playboy was outsourced to American Media. I'm in the bathroom washing my hands and like trying to like adjust my contacts, and this like VP, short dude, Napoleon Complex, comes in, he'll smarmy, and he's like, still wearing contacts, like all snooty. I'm like, yeah. He goes, dude, he's like, just get LASIK surgery. And I was like, doesn't that cost like $2,000 or maybe more? And he's like, yeah, but worth it. Like, what are you doing? He almost acted like disgusted that I would even think about wearing contacts. And I was like, how much money do you think I make, dude? I guess that was 9 years ago. It's probably gone down since then. But I know when my buddy had it, his eyes were red as hell, and it's sensitive to light, and he had to wear the glasses all the time. And I think Batista did a great job of showing the progression. Like, the first scene after it happens, his eyes are very closed, very shut, and then with each ensuing scene, they get more open until the end. So I mean, that's a good on him. But I feel like they could have helped us as the viewer feel his pain more consistently and more often, as opposed to just showing him kind of stumble around and not being able to, and it's blurred vision. I think they did check in once in a while, and they had that card that the eye doctor gives him, the little mini eye chart so that we can check in and see where his vision's at. So that was good, but it would almost like they forget for a little bit, and then the audience forgets for a little bit, and then they have to remind you. The ending was nice. I with the mole reveal aside and like that final battle with Tejo aside, when they're in the hospital after everything went down, and Stu took the bullet, Vic gives Stu a 5-star review, and then Stu reveals that Vic's tab was $5,500, which, the car was a lease. So I don't know. I mean, I guess does that replace your car? I don't know if that's enough to replace the car or whatnot. And, but I think, ending with, tip, and they set this up well in the act 1, and it comes to fruition here in the denouement, the final act, the closing scene, where see Bautista by himself at the Chinese restaurant. The daughter's nowhere in sight. He's kind of lonely and alone, but then you see the dog Pico pop his head up, and you're like, oh, okay, he took on the dog. The dog's fine. Sucks for the animal hospital doctor, though. That dude seemed pretty chill and cool, and then he gets a bullet and dies. I would have liked to see maybe he stops by the table and is like, how's Pico doing? Good. And you see him in a sling or something like that. It's like, that sucks that doctor died. Why did that doctor die? He was cool. Don't let him die. And then you see Vic park the car. He goes up to a house up the walkway and knocks on the door. His daughter answers the door. There's a beat, and then you see Stu come up next to her, and they reveal that they're dating. So I thought that was a good ending, and I did kind of see that coming. I thought at the art show, I was like, he's like, Becca's not gonna happen for him. It's pretty obvious, but like, there's, I don't know, Vic's daughter. There's like a little little Lethal Weapon going on, where like Riggs is gonna date Murtaugh's daughter. There was that kind of angle. So I was like, I kind of sensed that was coming, but I didn't hate that. I didn't like the Mira Sorvino reveal. I thought it was too basic and telegraphed. The Stu dating Nicole, I saw it coming, but I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That feels good. Maybe they could have done a little more to that effect, so it didn't feel that completely out of left field. They could have hinted at it a little bit more. Other than that, good movie. I had Christmas beers while watching this one. So if we're doing the beer scale, 5 beers. All right, yeah, 3.5 out of 5 beers. It's a favorable review. You're not going to hate the movie. I don't even think you dislike the movie. You're just not going to love it. All right, so that's movies. Let's talk Mets. Last week we said that there was no indication that Phil Regan would be back as pitching coach, the Vulture. There was no indication that Chili Davis would come back. I know he was seeking out a multi-year contract, and there was some doubt that the Mets were going to entertain that idea. Now it looks like, yes, they are going to negotiate with Chile and try and bring him back, which I think is a smart move. And but it's unclear what Phil's status is. It looks like the Mets are proceeding as if he won't be back, which sucks. I mean, he turned around the pitching staff considerably. So after Dave Island was fired, I think the bullpen kind of settled down. Starters got in rhythm. That's when Zach Wheeler started to take off. So I personally would like to have Regan back. If he doesn't come back, the Mets are interested in hiring Jeremy Hefner, who was a former starter. Was he a starter or was he a reliever? I think he was a starter in the minors, and when he came up, he was in the pen. Either way, Beltran likes him. I think Beltran played with him, and he did a pretty bang-up job with the Twins. He spent last season as the assistant pitching coach with the Twins, and then was also a scout in 17 and 18. Twins team ERA last season was 4.18, tied for 7th in the majors, 5th in the AL. Opponents did hit 257 against them, which was 20th in the majors. Their whip was tied for 9th with the Mets, and tied for 2nd for most saves and 6th in holds. So there are a lot of statistics and categories where the Twins were right there with the Mets as a team pitching, but the difference is saves and holds. So hopefully Hef can bring that over to the Metros this upcoming season. 5 questions Brodie Van Wagenen should answer at the MLB GM meetings. Number 1, are the Mets willing to go over the luxury tax threshold? History says no. I mean, they just won't. They've never been penalized for the luxury tax. I think someone on Twitter said it was like $17,500 for every dollar they go over the luxury tax threshold, which seems a bit extravagant. I assume the Yankees have gone over that every year since the dawn of time, and they've been to the playoffs almost every year. I don't know. It might be worth it. might be worth it. Like, can the Mets fans contribute? Can we do like a Kickstarter to cover the whatever penalties the luxury tax incurs? So it's estimated we have about 100, after all said and done with arbitration and all that, 174 million committed to the payroll in 2020 as is. Luxury tax threshold is 208 million. The penalty is, they say it's minimal. It's like, that's a lot of money for me. I don't know about you. And then we wouldn't stay over that threshold very long because the payroll clears pretty well after 2020. That said, I mean, I think you go for it, but we all know the Wilpons won't. So, although, what is the status of the dialogue with Zach Wheeler? So Mets put out the qualifying offer, the 1 year, 17 mil, something like that. Wheeler's expected to decline, but then, you know, there was a lot of people who have just written off the Mets and said that they will not even entertain the idea of negotiating, you know, of a multi-year contract of, you know, 20 some odd per year with Wheeler. And now it looks like, yeah, they're going to go for it. And this is why I can never be a GM or something like that. Because now there's a portion of Mets Twitter that's like, oh, why didn't you do this before it got a hand? It's like, well, did you really know what you had halfway through the season? It's like, yeah, he had a great second half of 2018. He was uneven in the first half of 2019. And then he really got into his own in the second half of 2019. You know, I personally think it's a risk worth taking because I don't know that you're really going to be able to afford Garrett Cole or Strasburg. Why not keep someone who's familiar with the team, the clubhouse, familiar with the surroundings, comfortable there? I'd rather just bring him back, keep him in-house than go after some free agent that might not mesh. I've been all for it from day one. I think he's just about to peak. He's about to go into that great DeGrom-esque type territory. I say go for it. The alternative is, if you don't sign him, don't go out and sign another starter. I think that's what their MO is. I think that's what they're going for. They're going to say, if we can't get Wheeler, there's no point in going after someone huge to replace him. It looks like they would probably move Lugo or Gettleman, which I hope they go for Lugo over Gettleman as the fifth starter, and then just stockpile the bullpen with arms because there are plenty of arms out there. They really are. If they can get Book 2, goes a long way. And one of those people might just be Daniel Hudson. I think he's projected to have a 5-4 record, 3.8 something ERA, 3 saves, 66 innings pitched. It's like, it just looks like a good, nice, solid line. You know, not blowing away guys per se. You know, I think he was a starter at the beginning of last season, and then after he was traded, he moved to the pen, and he was incredible for the Nats. He had like a 1 something ERA. So, you know, he should be high on the list to bring in. Speaking of the pen, can Edwin Diaz be relied on as the closer in 2020? No, but I still think he can be a vital part of the bullpen. And I don't know that you need to go out and I don't even know if there is a lockdown closer available on the market, but you have seen that Justin Wilson can come in here and there. If Lugo doesn't go into the starting rotation, I think Lugo is your guy to begin with. And then hopefully, you know, come trade deadline, you make that big move and lock down a closer. I mean, you should certainly give, say, like first 2 months of the season, Diaz is your 8th inning guy. He's your setup guy, and he performs well. And then, you know, who knows down the stretch. But I think you give Diaz plenty of opportunities in games, 8th inning, 7th inning. And if he's able to hold his own and not implode like he did last year, then you start to sprinkle in some 9th inning save opportunities here and there. And if he does that, I mean, you just got to ease him back into it. Probably start him off in lower pressure situations and then build with each, you know, build and build and build. That's the way I would approach it. But as the closer, no, thank you. You know, every game is so vital. We've seen that. They left 6 or 7 wins on the table last year, and a lot of those were attributed to Diaz. So I think take that out of the equation in 2020 and then put yourself in a really better position. Because if he's able to get his confidence back, get a better grip on his location and his slider, then, I mean, I don't know who beats us. Nobody. Question 4 for Brodie. How will he go about improving the defense, a mantra during these meetings or surrounding Brodie in the offseason? The Mets are going to have to get creative. And that just means being smart, being strategic. There are some teams that are just going to spend. Yankees being one of them. And the Mets, it doesn't seem like they're going to be. The only big spend that I could possibly see them doing is the Zach Wheeler signing. And if they're not able to come to terms on that, which they're going to try and lean on Wheeler and be like, you've been here so long, give us a hometown deal, give us the discount. It's only 4 years. Then you can, considering how the Mets have wanted to trade him away for so long, maybe Wheeler doesn't have the kind of loyalty that we all think he does. But the two positions, but this is in reference to the defense. And so defensively, where are we soft? Where are we weak? The catcher position. I just heard Brodie on Francesa today talking about how, and Francesa went right at him. Wilson Ramos, is he a part of your plan for 2020? And Brodie, of course, gives the PC answer, and says, yes, of course, he had a renaissance or evolved over last season. Offensively, yeah. Defensively, no. I mean, he's having problems blocking the ball, throwing out runners, and also with pitchers. Like, the pitchers don't want him back there. So honestly, the more I talk about it, the more I'm convinced that they're going to deal him to an American League team as a DH, hopefully get back a prospect, and then or a bullpen arm, which would be sweet, and then go after Yasmani Grandal full bore. And so that means that if they do sign Wheeler, I don't think that they bring in Grandal. I just don't see him making two huge deals. If they don't get Wheeler, I think Grandal has to be the number one target. And then you have to think about center field. Nimmo is unfortunately not a Gold Glover in center field, which is crazy to me because I feel like he just looks like he has speed. He looks like he would be able to cover a lot of ground, but apparently not. So they have to shore up center field and catcher, and I think they do that with Grandal and insert name here. I mean, everyone's so high on Mookie Betts, and that we're one of the top candidates to land Mookie Betts, but I don't think Mookie Betts wants out of Boston, unless I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I think he wants to see things through there and get another ring. It's like Red Sox are are kind of always in the discussion of World Series contention with the squad they have, especially since JD Martinez just opted back in. So when you have that guy up back in, it starts a groundswell, and I think you have others that want to return there as well. Question number 5. How is the coaching staff search going? Great. It's going fantastic. So let's talk about. We talked about Hefner as a potential pitching coach. It looks like they're going to enter into negotiations to bring back Chile, which I love. So let's talk bench coach candidates. Terry Collins. I know we mentioned him last week. I thought that was a bad idea. I just think it seems like it's too soon, too close. I mentioned that how it's nuts how we were so out on Terry, and then the jackpot video came out and we were back in, and I totally forgot he was a special assistant to Omar Minaya, and that he's like an advisor to the GM. But so Terry's officially out, according to the New York Post. And you don't know what to believe out of most reporters. I know Andy Martino, forget that guy, he stinks. There's a couple others that are just like, you can't believe a word they say. With the New York Post, I have a feeling that they're right on the mark. Jerry Narron. He was his name has been tossed in as a candidate. He used to be a bench coach for the D-backs. Narron's 63, been with the D-backs for 3 years. Before that, he was with the Brew Crew, and Mets assistant GM Adam Guttridge was with Milwaukee during that period, so there's some familiarity there. John Gibbons came up as a catcher with the Mets, managed in the minors, and was also managed the Blue Jays in Toronto. Media darling, laid back, likable, but not afraid to confront players. Has a good feel for strategy, according to scouts, which, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. Scouts, dude. Scouts. Pete Mackinnon, highly regarded. Stints with the Reds and Phillies. Never given a shot to manage. Brian Cashman was a big fan. Good management material. Recently is currently a scouting advisor for the Phillies. Ron Washington, former manager of the Rangers. This guy is like... If I'm correct, he's like, and this is, I don't know, you can say racist, I don't care. Reminds me of like a 1970s era Dusty Baker. He just looks like, Ron Washington looks like he's permanently stuck in the 70s and 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Currently the Braves third base coach, and he is known for his work with players, especially on defense, which the Mets have a pretty horrible defense. I was just seeing that. I was looking up some stats before the show. The Mets have last year allowed 139 stolen bases, which was first in the majors by a long shot. I want to say by like 50 stolen bases. And I know that's not necessarily defense, but it is a part of defense. When you think defense, you think errors, taking away runs. I mean, that is taking away runs, throwing out base runners, and Ramos didn't do that. And yes, a part of that responsibility falls on the pitchers, most notably Syndergaard, who takes forever to go to home despite having a 99-mile-per-hour fastball. It doesn't, you give the runner enough of a head start and they're going to swipe it very easily. So that's a name that I'm familiar with and that I don't hate. Sandy Alomar Jr., he was long considered a manager in waiting, went through a bunch of interviews, always came up short. He was the Mets catching instructor, 2008-2009, a sharp baseball mind, currently first base coach for the Indians. Here's that Alomar connection. We had Roberto Alomar, and he left a bad taste in my mouth. And then final candidate, bench coach candidate, Rich Donnelly. Managed 1,600 games in the minors, coached another 3,000 in the majors, sat beside Jimmy Leland, who I always thought would have been awesome as the Mets coach. Oh, I guess Donnelly managed the Mets rookie league affiliate in Kingston last season and coordinated the spring training camp for the big leagues. So those are the candidates. I guess if I had to rank them, I mean, I don't know much. In the names that stick out, I would say no to Narin, even though he has the connection that would probably get him in. I would say maybe to Gibbons, maybe to Makinen. I'd probably say no to Alomar, maybe to Donnelly, maybe to Washington. I think it would probably go, I mean, as a bench coach, don't you want a guy who's been there before and has seen it all? You know, and if that's the case, I think you have to give the edge to Washington, Donnelly, Makinen. These are my three choices. And then they'll go through 8 rounds of interviews, and then we'll hire them in 25. Here are 5 free agents the Mets should pursue this offseason. And this is an article probably from SNY or Metsmerized Online, one of the Mets websites, fan sites. We talked about this last week. Left-handed pitcher Drew Pomerantz struggled as a starter, traded the Brewers, and then had put up some very nice numbers in relief there. In 25 games, 2.39 ERA, 0.91 WHIP, 45 strikeouts, 15.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. Yikes. So yeah, I would definitely, out of the 5 that are here, he's the third guy in the pecking order that I would sign, depending on how things fall with everything else. It starts with Wheeler. Okay, so Wheeler is one of the free agents on this list, and this is, remember, it's an SNY list. Wheeler's number 1. Try to lock him up, lock him down. If you can't, okay, then I can see going after Pomerantz in tandem with number 3 on this list, Yasmani Grandal. Question is, do you sign Grandal first, which would hurt our negotiating power trading Ramos, or do you trade Ramos first, which then drives up the price for Grandal? Can you do it at the same time? Turn the keys at the same time. You must turn the keys. So Grandal, Pomerantz, Wheeler, we've already mentioned. And then there's 2 Yankees on this list, and I say fuck no to both these dudes. Brett Gardner, outfielder, no thanks. 36, guy looks like a penis. I'm out. Pineda is the other one, and I mentioned Pineda in another episode. He missed all of 2018 to Tommy John. 2019 was cut short to PEDs. He's going to miss the first 39 games of 2020 with this due to the suspension. 4.01 ERA, 1.16 WHIP, 8.63 Ks per 9. I don't know. I just don't want to even. Ever since what's his name got pinched for PEDs. I'm not talking about Robbie Cano. I'm talking about Henry Mejia. It's just they just can't keep their hands off of it. So that's a hard pass on Gardner and Pineda. The New York Post also ranked MLB's top 30 free agents and predicted where they'll sign. Wheeler came in at 4. They predict that he'll end up signing for 4 years, $85 million with the Yankees, which if the Yankees don't get Cole, then I could see them turning to Wheeler. I can't see them getting Cole and Wheeler. But 4 years, 85 is a cool 13 mil total above what the market value is for Wheeler. And if any team can afford to overpay, it's the fucking Yankees, man. Yasmani Grandal clocks in at number 5. He'll be 30. And the Post thinks that he's going to sign with the Mets. 4 years, 65 mil. And I am fucking getting excited talking about it. I think, I don't want to say he is the piece of the puzzle. If he can get us 3 more wins, we are right in line. 3 more wins, thanks to Grandal, plus less blown saves equals postseason, baby. Todd Frazier clocked in at 25. He's 33. New York Post thinks he's going to sign with the Brewers for 1 year, $5 million. We just have too much of we're clogged at third base. The only way I could see him possibly coming back to the Mets is if we dish Dom Smith, and then Frazier's your backup first baseman, who might get a start at third should Cano and Lowry shit the bed again. He's essentially an insurance policy for $5 million. If we can get him for $5 million, I mean, it's not $9 million. But I had him I said the Mets might entertain it if it was 1 year, $3 million, but I don't think Todd will go for that. Also, there was something with him and turkeys. He was like on the local news talking about turkeys in Tom's River. The hell was that about? I didn't even know. I don't know. I just keep seeing and hearing about it, but I don't know what the details. I'm in the know. You come to me, you're in the know. I'm in the know as in NO. Let's take a look at the NL East, other NL East teams, like their free agents and the free agents that they'll probably sign. The Nationals are probably going to, according to the Post, re-sign Rendon and Strasburg, which, Jesus, how much money do they fucking have? 7 years, $232 million for Rendon, 6 years, $182 for Strasburg. I mean, I guess with all that World Series money. They also, here's a name that the Mets, that has been talked about with the Mets, Will Smith, left-handed pitcher. I guess Smith is the top closer available since Chapman stayed with the Yankees. And but the Nationals are probably going to sign him 3 years, $40 million. And then they'll bring back Howie Kendrick. That dude. Ugh. Plenty left in his 36-year-old tank. 1 year, $6 million. The Braves, looks like Donaldson will go back to the Braves. 3 years, $75 million. The Braves are also going to get Madison Bumgarner. I mean, Jesus Christ. I don't know how the Mets are supposed to compete with any of these freaking teams when they keep, especially the Braves, who just keep getting top-notch players. 3 years, $60 million for Bumgarner, who's 30. The Phillies will probably sign Dallas Keuchel, age 31, 3 years, $48 million. I would love to see Dallas in another division. Please get out of our division. And then the Marlins are looking to sign Yasiel Puig, who's the 26th top free agent. And I'll never understand why the Mets don't entertain. I mean, I kind of understand because he's a hothead and maybe a head case. I think he can bring some energy. And if you're winning, it's good. I don't think he's going to be a distraction. If you're losing, it could snowball. So I could see that. But we plan to win next year. And I think we're going to be right on the edge. And I was surprised we didn't even entertain the idea of bringing him in last year and trading for him. The Marlins, 1 year, $7 million. I mean, the Marlins can get Puig, age 28, for 1 year, $7 million. Guy averages like 22 home runs, 75 RBIs a season. I don't hate that. What's wrong with that? But Brodie keeps on talking about value. He mentioned value a lot on the phone call with Francesa on FAN. So I assume that that's not great value. 1 year, $7 million when you can just pay JD Davis the league minimum or whatever. You know, I'd love to see us go after Pomeranz, Grandal. I think that's great. Try and bring back Wheeler. Go over the luxury tax threshold just a little bit to get what you want, to fill the gaps, fill the holes. Because the team you have in place now, you don't want to fall short by a game this go around. You know, it's like we fell short by 6 games, 4 games this year. Do you want to fall short by 1 game next year and just have that heartbreak again? No, let's make sure you have all the good places and pieces in place. Insurance is mostly what I'm looking for. Let's get some insurance. We have the capability with the current roster to win 90 plus. Let's get the insurance to make the probability a lot higher. Let's talk Giants. I said last week, if they lost to the Jets, fire Shumur, fire Bettcher, put Gettleman on the hottest of hot seats. And it sounds like it's not going to happen. Players to watch versus the Jets. This was before the game. Leonard Williams, Saquon, DJ, Ellison, Pulley. Spencer Pulley with, Nick Gates is like 5B. Leonard Williams had 3 total tackles, but we've seen since the game ended that there are all these stats that you don't account for in the box score. The box score does not account for all these invisible stats that Williams put up. And PFF, and yet again, PFF, getting under my skin, says that he got a 90-plus grade because he had multiple QB hits, multiple QB pressures. And, I've seen the game tape, and it's like, okay, he gets a hit on the quarterback, but the quarterback completed the pass for first down. It happened twice. And it's like, hits are great, I guess, but like sacks, dude. We need sacks. And it's great to get pressures and hurries and hits, and those all matter, but like sacks matter. We got 2 sacks. I mean, I guess it's a good step in the right direction. It's nice to have them on board and to get some pressure, but we still lost. We still lost to a shitty team. That Jets team stinks. I mean, I had them hand up before the season. I had the Jets with the roster that they put in place. I had them contending for the playoffs. I had them like 8-8, 9-7, going down to the final week, possibly getting into the playoffs, coming close, but probably not. Which is a step up from where they were in previous seasons, and they've been bottom of the barrel. I know Darnold's been missing, and that's why their offense has been in the shitter and been in the basement the league basement. But their defense is without, and I know CJ Mosley has been missing. So it's like their defense has been bottom of the league. Jones, I thought, played well. Saquon, 13 carries, 1 yard, and now everyone's clowning on Saquon. Get the fuck out of here, dude. What are you kidding? There was someone from Barstool, Jack Mack, who like was trolling hard on Twitter, saying like, "And this is who you selected, and you passed on this player and this player." And I was like, "Dude, don't say that. Saquon is not 100%. We all know that. He's got a high ankle sprain. He came back way too soon. Those high ankle sprains take a while to recoup from, rehab, get back to 100%. He's not 100%. I think Tua from Alabama had a high ankle sprain, and they ended up putting like metal screws into his ankle. It's like I don't think Saquon did that. You can tell. Just open your eyeballs, dude. Keep those lids pried open. Saquon's not 100%. It's very clear to see. He doesn't have the same acceleration, burst, cutting ability. He's doing that weird Super Mario jump a lot, which makes me think he's like trying to like stay, I don't know, trying to stay off that foot. It's like you're not making any moves when you do that. So, and the play calling with Saquon is just atrocious. I mean, Shumur's an idiot. And I understand. Jalapeno out. Spencer Pulley in. Spencer Pulley was competing with Jalapeno for the starting center position. So it's not like he's that far behind Jalapeno. Nick Gates in for Mike Remmers. And apparently Nick Gates actually performed better than Mike Remmers. And then, of course, Soldier went down with a concussion. And they have a guy they have never played at left tackle fill in for him. Not one snap at left tackle for this dude who used to play for the Jets. Eric Smith, I think his name is. And I've seen someone say that he actually played better than Soldier. But there was no run game. 3 of your top linemen are done. That in consort with Shumur repeatedly calling right up the gut, right up the gut, right up the gut, right up the gut, right up the gut. Uninspiring, uncreative, boring, no pulling guards, none of this, none of misdirection, no keeping a defense on the toes. They know exactly what's coming. And I think I forget the percentage of snaps, but the number of plays where Saquon gets the ball and is hit at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage was unreal. I think it was 11 of his 13 carries. That's what is he supposed to do? What the fuck do you want him to do, dude? There's no hole. We're not creating holes. And then, the plays are not creating holes. And then the backup linemen are not creating holes. So what do you want him to do? So I don't blame Saquon one bit. I know he was really hard on himself and he tried to avoid the questions after the game. Saquon, don't worry about it, dude. We know we're in a losing season. We know we stink. And I know you want to get out there and play and compete, but I think we're better off just like really bringing down the number of snaps. I want to say 50% of snaps, offensive snaps. Get Gallman a lot of reps. You signed Buck Allen. Play Buck Allen. You want to go third? I'm fine with that. The season's over, dude. We're 2-8. 8-8's not getting you anywhere. We have less than a 1% chance of making the playoffs. Looks like the Cowboys or Eagles are going to sew up the NFC East, and no one else from the NFC East is going to the playoffs with the records that we're compiling, especially when you have the Seahawks and Vikings as for sure wild cards. I'm fine with sitting Saquon or at least significantly reducing his playing time and giving some reps to Gallman and Buck Allen. Daniel Jones. Here's another guy that is catching a lot of flack, and people are saying we should move on from him and sign and go after Joe Burrow. What? Get the fuck out of here on that. First rookie since 1950 to throw a touchdown in each of his 8 starts. One of the only rookies to throw 4 touchdowns to account for 4 touchdowns per game in 2 games. The guy's putting up breaking rookie records, setting rookie records. The only issue we have with him are the turnovers. Didn't throw a pick in this game, just like he didn't throw a pick in the Lions game. Came close, but didn't. It's just the fumbling. So if he doesn't get stripped by Jamal Adams, which again is on Saquon, because Saquon met Jamal Adams to block him and got trucked, and Jamal just stole the ball from him. So if you don't have Saquon in there, if you have Wayne Gallman or Buck Allen in there and they make the block, does Daniel avoid the rush? Does he throw it away? Does he make a completion? And then we're talking about possibly a tied game going to overtime and maybe the Giants win. So, it's all a trickle effect. I still really believe in Daniel Jones. I think he's got the stuff. He makes some amazing throws, some good throws and tight spots, and he's forming a chemistry with Darius Slayton. I'd like to see him go to Golden Tate a little more often. It was good to see Slayton bounce back after such an atrocious game against the Cowboys. 1 catch for 4 yards, a drop pass. This time he had 14 targets for 121 yards and 2 touches. And it's like, if that's what we can get out of Darius Slayton or something, a reasonable facsimile of that, we got a good deal in the 5th round. So you want to, and this is why I think Gettleman is on the hot seat and he shouldn't be fired. Because he gave us Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Will Hernandez, Dexter Lawrence, Darius Slayton. I mean, these are it's a handful of rookies that I just named, with like Ryan Connolly probably in that mix of players that are going to are impact players already and that are only going to get better as time goes on. And that's not to mention that jury's still out on guys like O'Shane Ximenez and Lorenzo Carter, and if Baker gives a shit and actually learns the playbook, who knows what he's capable of, because he's shown when he plays man-to-man press coverage, he can be a great cornerback. But when he's in zone, he just doesn't know what to do. Then you also have like Corey Ballantyne, who, he got beat for a touchdown. Maybe with time, he comes around. Julian Love, we haven't seen any of him, Julian Love. So, I mean, in the draft, I think Gettleman has hit on a lot of good players. And you can't say the same for Jerry Reese in 2012. 2013, maybe 2014. He had 2-3 players he hit on. I think Gettleman's done a phenomenal job in the draft. He's done a shit job in free agency because we're locked in that stupid soldier contract that has an awful dead cap policy. I'm fine with keeping Gettleman. Okay, so he missed on Shumur and Bettcher and Shula. He missed on the coaches. He missed on free agents. He's given you some good drafts. And I think those are what's most important, because those are the guys that you're going to get on the cheap, young, good talent that, you have the opportunity, if you win, to bring them back and sign them long term. So, the keys to winning against the Jets going into the game were ball security, gap leverage, and finishing drives in the red zone. The Jets were 27th in the league with a -7 turnover differential. And of course, we didn't. This was like a replay of the Lions game. We got down big, 14-0. We scratch our way back. We give up the strip sack, fumble for a touchdown. And then our defense just falls apart towards the end. Gap leverage. The Jets offense had 16 plays of 20-plus yards, the fewest in the NFL entering week 10. And we give up big plays. Just give up some more big plays. Baker caught with another huge pass interference that puts the Jets in goal line situation. Another play where Baker lets a crosser, was it Crowder maybe, on a crossing route, just lets him go and then just kind of jogs after him down the field. It's just like, ugh. Red zone. Jets have had allowed touchdowns on 65.4% of opponents' red zone drives, was 29th in the NFL. And I don't even know if we really got into the red zone, but I think we did well there. Just another slow start, turnovers, big plays, and clock management. I mean, Shumur should be fired on this stat alone. When is the last time that we had all 3 timeouts at the end of the half, or with 2 minutes remaining in the half and 2 minutes remaining in the game? When is the last time that has fucking happened? I watched the good teams do it. The Chiefs, the Packers, the Vikings, the teams that are in playoff contention, they hold on to their timeouts until they're absolutely needed at the end of the half and at the end of the game. And then that just doesn't happen with us. He makes stupid challenges, which I thought we were bad. Adam Gase had 2 really bad challenges, but Shumur keeps on losing timeouts to challenges that he's not going to win, and then calling timeouts way too early. There was something like 4 minutes left when the Jets had the ball and we're obviously trying to run out the clock, and we called timeouts, all 3 timeouts, and we got the ball with like 4 minutes left, and then we did nothing and punted it back, and they just ran out. They were able to run out the clock, and by the time we got the ball back, we had 18 seconds left. What the fuck are we going to do in 18 seconds? Idiot. The Giants failed to score in the first quarter for the 5th time in the past 6 outings. They were been outscored 55-3 in that span. I don't understand, and it has to be on the coaches. It has to be on the coaches. If you're a coach, it has to be imperative you hammer into their heads. Can't have a slow start. We got to come out firing on all cylinders, and we just haven't. We've gotten down. I mean, it's literally the same game over and over again. 2-3 scores, and then it completely alters the way that Shumur calls the game, even though it shouldn't, because there's plenty of time. So it's just stick to your guns and do what you need to do, stick to what you plan throughout the week. So, that's discouraging. I was super high on O'Shane Ximenez at the beginning of the season, and he's seeing less and less snaps. Apparently the coaches are favoring play packages that favor speed over bulk, which is that working? Is that working? No. When you had O'Shane playing, we were winning. We won. Bucks, Redskins, we win. And then he sees less and less snaps, and we're still getting torched for 30 plus points. Maybe just play the guy and see, and make him and rush the passer and just unleash him for a game. We're out of it. This is the time where it's like, fuck your stupid schemes and ploys, because whatever you've put together is not working. And while you think it's going to work and you're trying to force the personnel to adhere to your stupid schemes that aren't working, maybe play the player's strengths. I don't know. Give it a shot. I mean, we're showing zero aggression on defense. I cannot believe the soft coverage we're giving. So soft. Like, come on. There was maybe one play I watched where we brought the motherfucking house on man-to-man press coverage and Darnold shit his pants and threw it away. Why are we not doing that more often, especially with 3rd and 10 or more? Why are we not doing that? You think that we can't, if we don't bring the house, we can't get to a guy with man press coverage? I mean, that's Baker's specialty. That's what he did in fucking college at Georgia. Jonas Jenkins, I know he's a lay back in the weeds and pounce kind of guy. He can also play press, and he's also pretty good at it. He locked down Des Bryant, and I know I keep going back to the game in 16, but it worked. Why are you not doing that? What is the deal here? You're playing soft off coverage, zone coverage, and I don't care how many starts you give these guys, they're not going to get it. They don't get it. Be aggressive. Be aggressive. At this point, I'm completely fine with reducing Saquon's touches and playing time and snaps significantly by half or more. I think there's no reason to trot Sterling Shepard out there anymore. Place him on IR, end his season so that he can really reevaluate where he is mentally and physically. I would even consider possibly sitting Evan Ingram for the rest of the season and really see what you have in Rhett Ellison. Luckily, I think they're getting they might get Scott Simonson back, who he's not, he's not curling any toes, but like can be a weapon in the passing game. So I think there's no point in bringing Ingram back. You're paying Ellison a lot of money. Start to utilize him more. Play Buck Allen, play Cody Core, play Cody Latimer. I mean, Cody Latimer is just like disappeared. Benny Fowler was getting 55 snaps on Sunday. Shumur needs to give up play calling for sure. You can't. There's so few coaches that have the ability to be the head coach and handle the play calling, and I think he needs to just focus on managing the team and managing the game, and let someone else take the play calling. Literally, you got to try something different. What you're doing sucks and you're not winning games because of it. So try something different. It might just save your job. I said be more aggressive in defense. They need to also simplify the defense. Yeah, whatever you're calling is too complicated for all these rookies, dude. Too many rookies, too many young guys, and the schemes that you're putting together. I know they were super in Arizona. They're great. And you brought in all these players from Arizona to help you out, and they haven't done shit. It's looking like, I guess Julian Love is taking first team snaps at free safety, replacing Antoine Bethea, which you drafted these guys. Let's see what they got. Bethea is not in the works for the future. He came in, and I guess he's a great leader and a great mentor, and maybe other players can speak to him as what he's like in the clubhouse. On the field, he's made less than a handful of plays that have been impactful. Way more negative plays than positive plays. It just sucks that we can't fire these assholes. And they're gonna let Shumur go into the 2020 season, and it's gonna be like, if you get off to this, and then we're looking at probably another wasted season. I mean, we really are. And it's like, what is he gonna have to do in 2020 to keep his job? Like, if he goes 500, do we keep him for 2021? Saquon's last year, and that's the year. If Saquon puts up the numbers he did in his rookie year, in 2020 and 2021, and we're still a shit team, there's no way we're going to re-sign him. There's no way. I think the only way that we can re-sign him is if we make the playoffs in one of those years, 2020 or 2021. I just don't see it happening. So the clock is ticking. Tick tock, tick tock. Shout out Watchmen. Shumur can use the excuse that he had all these injuries on offense, and that's why it didn't come together. Bettcher has zero excuses other than we have a lot of young talent and a lot of rookies. You have guys like Jamison Crowder and Demaryius Thomas burning you. Like, Demaryius Thomas was like not on a roster in September. We held Le'Veon Bell in check, but crazy that we didn't get any interceptions off of Darnold. I mean, Dalvin Tomlinson had a big game, I guess. Marcus Golden had a sack and a tackle for loss. Jabril Peppers was flying around, but like, there are some drives where the defense looks like, okay, whenever they get a 3-and-out, I'm like, where was this? Where has this been? Can we just do that every drive? And no, we can't. We just give up long ass drives. And right when you need, like, when we go up 27-21 as a defense, is the offense going over the defense and being like, hold them, step it up. We put up the points, we're up, hold them. Is anyone on the defense holding anyone else accountable, getting fired up that you're up 27-21? I mean, get Golden Tate involved in the fucking game earlier. Why is it until we get to like the second half to get him the ball? Why are you not designing plays, especially with Ingram out, especially with Shepard out, with Barkley banged up? Why is your focus not 100% on designing plays for Golden Tate and Darius Slayton? You got Slayton the ball plenty of times on Sunday, and I'd love to see that moving forward. I think that's great. But also, I'd love to see you work Tate into the game plan way earlier. Fucking Aldrich Rosas, man. I can't believe, and they brought in a bunch of players, I guess, on Monday or Tuesday for workouts, and one of them was a kicker, but it's like a name I didn't recognize. So I doubt that anything will come of it. But like, dude, you've missed extra points in like three straight games. And I would argue that they have significantly affected the way Pat Shumur calls the rest of the game. Just make extra points. Just make extra points. Because what ends up happening is you miss the extra point. Shumur, for whatever reason, decides to go for two way too early, dude. Way too early. He did it again this time. Dude, if you just kick the extra point, we're within a field goal, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. Push the 2-point conversion. You don't. It's a break in case of emergency type fucking move, dude. It's not, hey, let's just do it, because then we have the opportunity to tie the game now. It's the third quarter. Judging by history, the shit's going to go back and forth and more points are going to go on the board. So save the 2-point conversion for as late in the game as possible. And he just doesn't understand that. It's hard watching this team. It really is. I mean, this is the lowest I've probably felt in a long time. I think last week was pretty low. Lions game, I think I lost pretty much all my hope. The Cowboys loss pretty much cemented it. And then losing to the Jets, I mean, I cannot believe. And John Mara stormed out after the game, refused to answer questions. And I would do the same thing, dude. You're the owner. You've gone on the worst stretch of football this franchise has seen since the fucking 70s. And the 70s were brutal. We were playing at the Yale Bowl, 2-hour drive from Manhattan. The only thing I can think of is it's always darkest before the dawn. And the 70s gave us Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms and Carl Banks and Gary Reasons and a whole mess of players, courtesy of one coach. Pat Shumur is not that coach. Pat Shumur is like the Ray Perkins before the Bill Parcells. So I feel like the next coach we get is Bill Parcells, is that Bill Parcells level type of talent. You look back at the 70s, there was McVay, Arnsberger, Perkins. Kind of feels like McAdoo, Shumur, and then this next guy that we get has to be all out, all in, the guy. And I saw like someone suggested Matt Rule from Baylor, which I don't hate, turned around a Temple team, turned around a Baylor team. Something to consider. He was also the offensive line coach under Coughlin with Snee and Kareem McKenzie and Deal and O'Hara. That makes me feel real good inside. I don't see why you prolong this. Shumur has enough games under his belt that he should not be managing the team the way he is. I think he costs the team victories with the way he manages the clock, with the way he calls plays, with the way that he is challenges, going for 2 points. I mean, just like it's bad all around. The only thing I can think of is luckily we have a bye. It came at the perfect time because I think this gives, if there were a game this Sunday, I don't think Shumur would be canned, but I think that this gives Mara plenty of time to sit on it, stew on it, read the countless letters and emails he's getting from fans saying to fire this asshole. And I think Mara takes his time, and I think he sits down with Gettleman and he says, we fucked up. And I know we have a young quarterback, and I know that we have gone through this before, but this time there is no screwing up. You're doing yourself a tremendous favor if you fire him earlier rather than later. Can't even imagine what you have to do in 2020 in order to become a playoff team. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. This team is insane. We're doing the same things week in and week out, and that's on the fucking coaches. You can blame the players, sure, for not executing, sure, but at some point the coaches have to make adjustments and they have to do better. They just have to do better, and they're not. And then they have an attitude about it, and then they try to say, oh, this and that, and no one's buying it, dude. No one is buying what you're saying. You can say, oh, he's doing well with Daniel Jones. Do you ever think that Daniel Jones is doing well because he's awesome and talented? I don't think. Just don't bring in another coach who's gonna hurt him. It's that simple. Get a better coach than Pat Shumur. Don't rely on the crutch of Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is fine. He's going to be fine. He's a good player. Got to work on the fumble situation, the turnover situation. Other than that, he can scramble. He's got legs. He's accuracy, deep ball. He's got it all. Poise, toughness, grit. I mean, the one run he had on the third down where he picked up the first down and he's just getting clobbered. I was like, oh, I don't know if I love that. But the fact that he's willing to put his body on the line, I mean, it shows a lot. The guy wants to win. He cares. He's not a Jamarcus Russell. He's not a Jay Cutler. Get the F out of here with that comparison. You're nuts, dude. Daniel Jones is going to be good for a long time. And I don't want Pat Shumur to be the reason we hold him back. Shumur and Bettcher had their opportunities, multiple opportunities to turn this team around. If you look at the New York Giants franchise history, right, and I consider us a successful franchise, most new coaches were given pretty decent leash, but not too long. 2 straight losing seasons, 2 straight bad losing seasons is about your ceiling. That's about as much as you can get away with. Tom Coughlin, year 2, 11-5 playoffs. Bill Parcells, year 2, 9-7, 3-12-1 his first year. Year 2, 9-7. Year 2 playoffs, 9-7. I think. Yeah, we played the Rams. Jim Fossil, year 1 playoffs. Dude, Ray Hanley didn't even have 2 losing seasons. 8-8, and then he had a losing season gone. Ben McAdoo didn't even get the luxury of having 2 losing seasons. He had one of the worst losing seasons since Bill Parcells and was canned just because he benched Eli. Oh, Dan Reeves, year 1 playoffs. I mean, a new coach. I understand that he's dealing with a lot of players that were left over from the previous regime. Year 1, you're trying to figure it out. Year 2, you're not trying to figure it out, dude. Year 2, you've got your plan in place. Players are executing. You've got things going in the way that you want. I don't think he deserves a year 3. I really don't. And if he somehow survives the bye week, which I don't think he should, what is it going to take over the final part of the season for you to consider keeping him on for 2020? Is it, wow, we've magically cured Daniel Jones of his turnover problem? Is it, I managed the game better? Because, I mean, is it as simple as just winning? So if we finish 8-8, does that save his ass? I mean, yeah, it could go a long way to saving him. If Leonard Williams continues to put up a game like he did against the Jets on Sunday, is he going to re-sign with the Giants? They want to get a deal done before Thanksgiving? Why? Unless we pay out the ass. And this is the other thing. So we got rid of Olivier Vernon because he didn't get sacks. He got high PFF grades. Pressures, hits, rushes, whatever, hurries. So we traded him. And now we have Leonard Williams, who's basically Olivier Vernon minus the sacks. We're going to reward him with a big contract? I just don't get it. The secondary needs a lot of help. And I don't think under your current scheme with Bettcher, that's going to get any better with your current roster. I think even if you draft some prolific high-end corners, DBs, whatever in the draft, I just don't see it happening. I say it's time to move on. People say it's too quick to move on. Giants have done it in the past, and they've seen great results. Bill motherfucking Parcells. That's your get. You can't land another Shumur, another McAdoo. Bill Parcells is the guy. Now, was Bill Parcells back in the day when that happened? No, of course not. Bill Belichick kind of was not great with the Browns, and then he went to the Pats and was awesome. So I understand it's not that easy. But I can't stand watching this team with this coaching staff. Cannot stand it, the way that they handle games and mismanage games. It's inexcusable. I could understand if we're losing games and we're executing and the other teams are just better. We're not making the mistakes and we need a ball to bounce here or there. Nope. I mean, we're self-destructing on a weekly basis over and over and over again. That's on the coaches. Thank God it's a bye week. I can actually relax and enjoy myself and not have stress because, I don't see us winning many games down the stretch. And if so, I don't know. Maybe it's not such a bad thing. You get to fire Shumur and Bettcher. You get to bring in Chase Young, elite pass rusher, helps out your defense, maybe draft a stud wide receiver, maybe even clear some space. And that's the big one. If you cut a lot of the guys that we've talked about that have been on the bubble for a long time, Ellison, Solder, Jenkins, Ogletree, etc., you're looking at, I want to say, $60 to $100 million in cap space, in which case you can go after the 2 to 3 playmakers and game changers you need, at least on defense. Because it feels like an offensive line, that's a major concern. The 2 tackles, center. So it's 3 offensive linemen and then multiple people on defense, linebackers. You got a lot that they have to do. And I don't want to see any of that happen under Shumur and Bettcher. I think it's obnoxious watching them. So that's this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, for listening. You can follow me Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Real Cinch, call the hotline. It is overflowing of voicemails. I can't believe I didn't mention any. 862-BIT-1986, 862-BIT-1986. And we might not see you next week. It's a little touch and go. Actually, you will definitely not see me next week. That's it for this week, and it's possibly it for the show forever. What a show to end on. Happy birthday to me. Adios, muchachos.